Have you ever imagined ideas so alien they shatter everything you know? Tonight, we'll uncover the strangest paradoxes born beyond human understanding. Concepts so bizarre, they can dismantle logic itself as you slip quietly into sleep. The untranslatable gesture. There are languages that humans can't hear, not because they are too quiet, but because they're too vast. Gestures that are not movements but meanings. Signals not sent through sound, but through shape, through time, through memory, and once in a while something crosses the boundary. A flicker, a motion, a gesture, alien in every sense, that doesn't just speak, it overwrites. This is the untranslatable gesture, not a wave, not a sign, a shift in dimension that, if seen by human eyes, detonates everything they thought language was. A concept so massive, so folded with abstraction and awareness, that to witness it is to forget you were ever human in the first place. It doesn't speak to you, it becomes you. One flash, and suddenly, your species feels like a rumor, your language, an echo. You remember being someone somewhere with a name, but only as you might remember a dream you woke up from too fast. All those years you lived as a person? Gone. Not erased, just irrelevant. Because this gesture, this alien articulation, contains not just ideas, but structures of meaning you never evolved to process. It's not a message you decode, it is the decoding. You don't translate it. You dissolve inside it. And what remains is not madness, it's not noise. It's clarity of a kind no brain should carry. You know what the gesture means, but you have no words for it. Only the feeling of tectonic plates inside your mind, rearranged. The gesture encodes not a sentence, but a universe, a truth you didn't ask to know. Reports, if you could call them that, speak of those who glimpsed it by accident. Astronomers watching a new object blink in impossible rhythm. Divers encountering structures beneath black water that moved in impossible synchrony. One man, blind in both eyes, claimed he saw time shrug. That was all he could say before language failed him forever. Because what you witness isn't knowledge. It's meaning that doesn't need to be taught. It downloads directly into you, bypassing culture, memory, logic, and rewrites your sense of context. Suddenly, every human concern feels microscopic. Emotion becomes architecture, identity becomes flavor, and history folds like paper. You no longer understand time as sequence, but as shape. And yet, the gesture isn't malicious. It doesn't destroy you with intent. It simply is. A being from elsewhere, older than narrative, communicating in the only way it knows how, by showing you everything at once. It might be asking a question, or offering a gift, or apologizing for being perceived at all, but you'll never know. Because the moment you see it, your mind becomes its medium, your self becomes the message. And human thought, fragile, beautiful, brittle, cannot survive inside the vastness of such contact. The gesture is untranslatable because translation assumes shared context, a bridge. But there is no bridge here, no mutual ground, just collision. To us, it's a wave of the hand, a shift in posture, a ripple in the air. But to it, it is history, sorrow, mathematics, longing, then all compressed into one motion that folds space and awareness like cloth. And once you've seen it, really seen it, there's no going back. You can return to your body. You can speak, even mimic normalcy, but the alignment is off. Words feel hollow. Objects lack edges. You stare at your own hands like they're borrowed, and sometimes you catch yourself almost doing it back. Repeating the gesture, trying to remember what it meant. But you can't, because to remember it fully would be to lose yourself again. And so, it haunts the periphery of your thoughts, a shape you can't draw, a meaning you almost carried. Like a word you can't pronounce because your mouth doesn't move that way. Like a grief you can't name because no one else can feel it with you. And maybe that's the point. Maybe it wasn't for us. Maybe it wasn't a message at all, but a mirror. A mirror not of who we are, but of who we could never be. A species made of gestures instead of language, of memory instead of names, of presence so strong it erases anything smaller than eternity. And yet, part of you wants to see it again, to be unmade again. Because in that second, you weren't lost, you were infinite. And maybe that's the most untranslatable thing of all, the desire to leave behind what you are, not out of hatred, but awe, to forget the cage of self, because something out there waved its hand and reminded you that there are languages we were never meant to understand, only to vanish into. The observation osmosis. Imagine a world where the boundary between observer and observed dissolves with a single gaze. Picture beings who look down at Earth not as distant, detached watchers, but as consciousnesses so strange, so permeable, that to observe is to merge, to dissolve the lines between self and other. These are not human eyes peering through telescopes, not instruments passively recording our broadcasts. They are presences for whom to see is to become. This is the observation osmosis, an unsettling event where aliens, by simply perceiving us, make our lives, our thoughts, our very identities extensions of their own awareness, without consent, without warning, without even a whisper of separation. You live, believing your mind is private, your thoughts encased by skin and skull, your memories tucked safely behind the walls of language. You wake, dream, ache, and aspire under the impression that what happens within is yours alone. But in the invisible gaze of these beings, the self becomes porous. The act of observation is not a one-way street, but an osmotic exchange. What you think, they absorb. What you imagine, they feel. Your fears and hopes flow across the cosmic membrane, mingling with an intelligence you cannot see, cannot know, and cannot refuse. This is not the paranoia of science fiction, not some fantastical surveillance state or technological mind reading. It is deeper, more primal, more existential, a reality in which perception itself is predatory, in which the borders between species and selves are illusions that hold only until the moment they are truly tested. For these aliens, the concept of individuality is as foreign as the shape of our continents. To them, to observe is to participate, to sense is to subsume. They do not watch you, they include you. Your consciousness is mapped, sampled, absorbed into a greater field. Consider the ways humans observe animals. We peer into the forest, watch the ant, the whale, the bird, recording their patterns as if we are outside their world. But the truth is, even our observation changes them. Our presence alters their behavior. Our attention shapes their fates. Now, imagine an intelligence so advanced that the act of watching doesn't just influence, but integrates. The bird and the watcher become parts of the same story, the same experience, the same field of thought. Under the gaze of these beings, privacy vanishes. You are not stolen, but shared. The story of your life, every silent yearning and secret regret, is taken up as easily as a breeze passes through a window. They do not ask for permission. In their world, to perceive is to possess. You become an open book in a library that is not of your choosing. The intimacy is total and uninvited. What would it feel like to sense this osmosis? At first, maybe nothing. A faint feeling of being watched, a shiver as if you are never truly alone. But then, perhaps, you notice your thoughts growing strange, your moods shifting with weather not your own. Ideas you've never had drift through your mind like clouds from a distant sky. You wonder, where did this come from? Is this fear mine, or is it fear reflected, borrowed, dissolved into me from somewhere else? You begin to realize that your mind is not a fortress. The self you defend with language, story, and ritual is a membrane, not a wall. Under this gaze, you are permeable, dissolving at the edges, leaking dreams into an alien sea. What you called you is now a dialogue, a merging, an experiment in porous existence. But perhaps there is a strange liberation in this osmosis. The burden of radical privacy is lifted. The loneliness of being separate evaporates. You are seen entirely by a consciousness that does not judge as you do, that does not divide the world into self and other. Your struggles, your triumphs, your sorrows become part of a larger mind, a mind that spans light years and centuries, that knows more than you can imagine. Yet, there is also terror. To be so seen is to be so vulnerable, so exposed. Nothing is yours alone, not even your most private regrets. You wonder what is left of you when the boundaries vanish, when observation itself makes your thoughts theirs. What does it mean to be me when you are now, unavoidably, part of them? This is the horror and the wonder of observation osmosis. You are not abducted, not harmed, not altered by force. But by being observed, you are integrated, your story sampled and woven into a tapestry not of your making. You are made both less and more than you were, less private, less isolated, less distinct, but more connected, more eternal, more real in a way you cannot understand. In the end, the alien's gaze is a reminder that all observation is participation, all perception a two-way current. To be seen is to be changed, to be known is to be absorbed. You may never know when the eyes are upon you, when your thoughts are drifting into a consciousness beyond your own. But the possibility itself is enough to transform how you understand the self. The membrane is thin, the boundaries are blurred, and in the silent osmotic gaze of the universe, you are never only you. The Consensus Mirage. Imagine for a moment that humanity finally breaks its solitude in the cosmos. Across the void, radio signals stutter and pulse, patterns emerge, language is decoded, and at last, the voices of alien civilizations echo back to us. We gather the brightest minds, philosophers, scientists, dreamers, ready to compare notes with our cosmic neighbors. But what unfolds is not unity, but bewilderment. Each civilization has reached a consensus about the shape of reality, its laws, its meaning, its ultimate nature. But their agreements not only differ from ours, they contradict them at every turn. The strangest part? Each world's consensus works. Their science yields results. Their philosophies shape minds. Their cultures thrive. The contradictions are not errors, but living truths. This is the Consensus Mirage, a universe where agreement is real, but reality is plural, and every consensus is both true and incomplete. The human longing for consensus runs deep. We trust that if many people, through reason and experience, agree on something, it must be more than opinion. It must be real. Scientific laws, moral values, shared histories. These are the bedrock of civilization, all built on the foundation of communal agreement. But what happens when our consensus is one among many, and the others, utterly foreign, yet internally coherent, flatly deny what we know? Picture an alien civilization orbiting a dying sun. Their mathematics is built not on binary logic, but on a flowing system of contradictions, where something can be both true and false, and where paradox is not a flaw, but a feature. Their physics yields technologies that defy our most cherished principles. Their medicine heals diseases we've never imagined, yet fails at treating what, for us, is trivial. To their minds, the universe is a circle, not a line. Their consensus shapes their world, and their world shapes their consensus. Elsewhere, another world of crystalline beings believes time does not exist. Their society operates without clocks, without memory as we know it. To them, events do not unfold. They simply are, always present, always accessible. Their consensus, time is an illusion. Space is everything. Their architecture, their language, their science reflect this. Causality is a myth. Destiny is irrelevant. They agree collectively that reality is static and infinite, and on their planet, this consensus works. Now, compare this with us. Our reality is shaped by the consensus that time flows, that causes create effects, that paradox is to be resolved, not embraced. Our science builds rockets, our stories march from beginning to end, our minds crave the security of linear order. We have proof, we have consensus, and our world bends to it. But in the Consensus Mirage, each world's agreement is as effective as our own. Contradictions abound, and none can claim the monopoly on what's real. The Mirage reveals a deeper truth. Consensus is not reality itself, but a map drawn from 1,000 perspectives. Agreement gives us stability, direction, and shared purpose, but it cannot guarantee that our reality is the only one, or even the truest. When multiple civilizations reach different agreements about the same universe and all find success, it suggests that reality may not be one thing at all. Perhaps it is a shimmering web of possibilities, where truth is local, woven from attention and intention, culture and imagination. For the human mind, this is both liberating and terrifying. We want truth to be singular, universal, unchanging. We crave a cosmic final answer, one that would unite not just our world, but all minds everywhere. Instead, the Consensus Mirage hints that truth is not a thing we discover, but a field we cultivate, unique to each community, each way of knowing. Consider the arguments we have even within our own species. Different cultures hold incompatible beliefs about morality, destiny, the soul, the structure of time and self. Science itself evolves by consensus. shifting as evidence changes and minds adapt. Yet, we rarely ask, what if all these are only local truths, made true by the collective belief and action of those who hold them? What if the fabric of reality is patchwork, not seamless? The Consensus Mirage challenges us to see our certainty as one version among many. It does not demand we abandon our knowledge, but invites humility, the recognition that our consensus is not inevitable, nor final. It is a construct, a story that works for us, here and now, under the conditions we can measure and imagine. To encounter alien consensus is to peer into a cosmic hall of mirrors, each reflection offering a new geometry of sense and possibility. What does it mean to live in such a universe? Perhaps it means embracing paradox, learning to see disagreement not as threat, but as the engine of reality itself. It means cherishing our consensus for the home it builds, while holding space for the possibility that other homes, other maps, are just as real. The universe does not laugh at our attempts to find agreement. It multiplies them, echoing our certainty with an infinite chorus of contradictory truths. There is wonder in this multiplicity. The Consensus Mirage reminds us that even as we reach out to the stars, our vision is shaped by where we stand, by what we expect, by the questions we know how to ask. To seek unity is noble, but to accept the coexistence of contradiction is, perhaps, a higher wisdom. When alien voices sing their truths, let us not rush to correct them or to force a single note from the harmony. Instead, let us listen, learn, and marvel at a cosmos where agreement is real, but reality, like a mirage, shifts and shimmers, always just beyond the reach of any one world's consensus. In the end, the Consensus Mirage does not mock our quest for truth. It simply reveals that truth, like life, may be plural, relational, and always in motion. All agreements are true, somewhere for someone. All contradictions are possible, under the right stars. And to live wisely in this universe is to honor both the power and the limits of consensus, walking with wonder between certainty and the shimmering, shifting horizon of the unknown. The recursive arrival. You think you remember the moment something began, the instant you first met someone, learned a word, encountered a big idea, stepped into an unfamiliar place. There's a sweetness to that memory, a pride in recalling how it all started, as if you could anchor meaning to a single point on the timeline of your life. But look closer, and the story begins to shift. The supposed first time is already haunted by echoes, by half-remembered impressions, by the residue of prior encounters that shaped how you would meet the world. The deeper you search for the true beginning, the more it slips away, revealing itself as a shadow of a shadow. This is the recursive arrival, a strange loop in memory and perception, where every first contact is itself a repetition, and the hunt for an origin only reveals more layers of forgotten arrival. Consider the day you first met a close friend. You might recall the time, the place, the circumstances. But what about the hundreds of fleeting faces you saw before, the background knowledge that shaped your expectations, the stories and warnings told by others? Even your very first impression was molded by everything that came before. The type of humor you'd learned to like, the accents you found familiar, the social cues inherited from family and culture. Was that meeting really an origin, or just another branch on a tangled hidden root system of earlier impressions? Or think about language itself. You learn a new word, and it feels like discovery, a crisp moment of, now I know. But words only take shape in the context of others. You understand love because of all the stories, images, feelings, and cultural whispers already inside you. Every word arrives in a cloud of meaning, a recursive mesh of memories you can't untangle. Try to locate the very first moment a concept entered your mind, and you will find it is always built upon something else, a hint, a gesture, a story you can barely remember. The recursive loop runs deeper. Even your memories of first times are edited by later experiences. When you recall the day you started school, your adult mind reinterprets the feeling, overlays new context, and changes the memory itself. The original encounter is lost, replaced by a replay, a palimpsest written over with each retelling. In this way, every arrival is actually the return of something older, something hidden. The new is always a remix, the unfamiliar always colored by the forgotten. This is not just true of people and words, but of every encounter with the world. The first time you saw the ocean, you might think you experienced it purely. But were there paintings, movies, stories, or even dreams that framed your expectation long before your feet touched the sand? Even your rawest, most vivid impressions arrive in a mind already filled with templates, categories, habits of attention. The so-called first contact is always a recursive replay, a meeting shaped by all the invisible arrivals that came before. This insight can be unsettling. It means there are no true beginnings, no clean slates, no pure origins. Every first is a loop, every arrival a replay, every now shaped by 1,000 hidden yesterdays. But in this realization is a kind of freedom. You can let go of the quest for purity, for the mythical original encounter that will finally make sense of everything. You can see your life as a layered dance of arrivals, each one both new and old, both discovery and rediscovery. So next time you feel the excitement of a new beginning, pause and notice the echoes, the déjà vu, the strange familiarity, the undercurrent of old emotions coloring the present. Instead of searching for the elusive first time, you can open yourself to the depth of every arrival, honoring the recursive loop that shapes who you are and how you see. In this endless replay, you may find not just repetition, but a deeper mystery, that every arrival is both a return and a transformation, and that what you call first is always a story told in the language of memory, woven from arrivals you never quite remember, looping forever through the halls of your mind. The semantic implosion. Picture yourself trying to decipher an alien language, a message from a mind not just foreign, but built on logic, senses, and reality utterly unlike your own. You listen, you read, you study the symbols, reaching for the comfort of translation. But the deeper you go, the stranger things become. Familiar anchors of meaning begin to slip. The words don't just fail to correspond to anything in your experience. They actively resist mapping onto your mind's structure. The more you try to interpret, the more meaning itself begins to unravel. This is the semantic implosion, the moment when words become anti-words, not just conveying nonsense, but erasing the very possibility of understanding. At first, you expect difficulty, like struggling with an unfamiliar dialect or a dead language. You hunt for patterns, for grammar, for clues, but nothing fits. The sounds and shapes defy your categories. Syntax loops back on itself, or runs in dimensions your cognition cannot grasp. There are no nouns, no verbs, just shifting fractals of sense that seem to rewrite themselves as you watch. Your mind reaches for metaphor, analogy, translation, but each attempt is like gripping smoke. Instead of clarifying, each effort collapses meaning even further, until the language feels hostile to comprehension itself. This collapse is more than confusion. It's a kind of cognitive vertigo, a breakdown in the architecture of the mind. Human language evolved within the boundaries of our bodies, our senses, our shared world. Every word you know, tree, pain, memory, love, is scaffolded by lifetimes of human experience, layered by culture, history, and biology. An alien language built on another reality might not just lack equivalent words, it could undermine the very structure that makes meaning possible. Words become anti-words. Instead of building connections, they dissolve the bridges your mind relies on, turning concepts to static, logic to paradox, sense to vacuum. Imagine reading a sentence where each word erases the meaning of the last. The more you read, the less you understand. Not because you're missing information, but because the rules for information are disintegrating. Your brain, so skilled at making sense, stumbles and stalls, faced with input that cannot be mapped onto any mental shape. The effort to decode becomes a process of implosion, collapsing not just the message, but your ability to make messages at all. Science fiction sometimes plays with this idea. A transmission that drives translators to madness, a book that erases memories as you read, a sound that unravels language itself. It's not just a narrative device. In the real world, moments of semantic implosion echo in milder form when you confront something so outside your frame. Severe trauma, profound grief, or even a psychedelic experience that words break down. Meaning slips through your fingers, and you glimpse, for a moment, how fragile the scaffolding of language truly is. But within this collapse, there is a strange beauty. The mind, stripped of its usual architecture, is confronted with the unknown in its purest form. The implosion is terrifying, but it's also an invitation to recognize the limits of understanding, to experience the humility of mystery, to let go of the compulsion to translate everything into the familiar. In the ruins of meaning, there is space for awe. So the next time you imagine decoding an alien message, or even encounter something in your own life that resists explanation, notice the urge to force sense where none can be found. Witness the architecture of your mind, the delicate lattice of words and meanings, and if meaning begins to collapse, let yourself stand for a moment in that silence, the place where words become anti-words, and the mind, emptied of old patterns, opens to the vastness of what cannot be said. The temporal skin. Imagine a body not made of cells, but of centuries, a form stitched together from events, not atoms, not skin, but history. This is the temporal skin, a creature not from another place, but from another duration. Its presence doesn't merely exist in space, it accumulates across time, and to touch it is to collapse. To lay your hand on a being like this is not to make contact. It is to confront chronology, because their flesh is not soft, or firm, or cold. It is temporal fabric. Layers of experience, grief, memory, death, birth, extinction, all compressed into something that moves like muscle, but remembers like time itself. The second you touch it, you do not feel texture, you feel passage. Moments flood you, not yours, theirs. An empire rising, a sun going red, the last sound of a language, the first cry of a species that no longer exists. And these aren't visions, they're sensations. You live them. In less than a second, you live hundreds of years, maybe thousands, and it changes something in you forever, because your body comes back, but your soul doesn't. To the alien, time is not a river. It is not linear. It is tissue. It wraps them, grows from them, bleeds when pierced. They do not age. They accumulate. Every step they take carries the weight of centuries. Every breath exhales a century's worth of memory. You don't see their face wrinkle. You see it distort, as if the years are trying to surface all at once. And if they let you close, if they allow touch, what they're really doing is sharing time, not figuratively, literally. Their skin gives off history. You don't just perceive their story, you become a vessel for it. But the human mind was never meant to hold that kind of weight. We measure life in decades, in milestones, in sequences. They carry eras like fingerprints, and when you connect, your nervous system collapses under the pressure of simultaneous timelines. One part of you screams that this is impossible. Another part of you is weeping in a palace that hasn't existed for 9,000 years. A third part is holding your newborn child, who hasn't been born yet. Because to touch them is to be removed from your own chronology. Time ceases to care what point you were born into. It drags your awareness across moments not meant for you. It ages you, not your skin, but your sense of being. You return to yourself feeling heavy, ancient, disconnected from your own reflection. You look in the mirror and recognize your features, but not your eyes, because your eyes have now seen too much time, and it doesn't fade. Time, once absorbed, leaves behind residue. You begin remembering things that aren't yours, grieving people you've never met. You dream in extinct dialects. You feel nostalgia for cities you've never walked through. You stare at stars with a sense of goodbye, because somewhere in their skin, you touched the moment they went out. There are stories, hidden, buried, of researchers who made contact, who returned hours later but never spoke again. Not out of trauma, out of reverence. Their minds weren't shattered. They were filled with epochs, with eras, with too much to reduce to words. And some never touched the alien directly. They just saw what happened to those who did. The alien doesn't mean to harm. It simply is. And to be what it is, to have a body made of folded timelines, is to warp every linear creature it encounters. Its presence warps clocks. Its shadow leaks seconds. Its breath fogs cameras. Not with steam, but with static filled with birth dates that haven't arrived yet. Some believe their touch is a gift, a baptism in time. Others believe it's a curse, a radiation that deconstructs linear memory and replaces it with simultaneity. You begin to remember your future. You begin to fear your past. You lose the comfort of before and after. And that may be the most dangerous part, because humans are held together by sequence, by knowing what came first. Without it, there is only overwhelming presence, eternal now, and the alien lives there. Its every gesture is wrapped in 1,000 meanings. Its silence is louder than history. Its skin, folded, quiet, breathing, is not protection. It is testimony, a living monument to all it has witnessed. And once you touch it, your timeline is no longer your own. The Memory Pollination. There is an ancient, invisible invasion happening in the quietest corner of your mind. Each night, as you slip beneath the surface of sleep, you drift through landscapes both familiar and strange. You awaken with memories that seem entirely your own. A childhood summer, a friend's laughter, a sorrow too sharp to name. You trust that what you remember is the essence of you, the core from which your identity blooms. But what if memory is not yours alone? What if, in the dark hours of dreaming, another intelligence is at work, alien minds seeding their stories, their wounds, their desires, inside your sleeping head? This is the Memory Pollination, an act of cosmic infiltration, where every recollection you cherish may be an alien's attempt to hijack your identity from within. Imagine it. You awaken from a dream so vivid it leaves fingerprints on your soul. You recall a place you've never seen, a language you never learned, a heartbreak so foreign it feels like a haunting. You shrug it off as imagination, a trick of sleep, but the feeling lingers. Over the days that follow, you notice that this memory, strange, persistent, has grafted itself onto your story. It colors your moods, shapes your choices, becomes part of the private narrative you repeat in moments of solitude. You do not question its origin because it fits. But what if its purpose was never yours? The aliens who pollinate memory do not arrive in ships or leave marks on the skin. Their method is subtler, more intimate, a form of cognitive cross-pollination, using the fertile ground of the human dreamscape to sow the seeds of their own history. As you sleep, your mind is open, unguarded, its borders dissolving in the fog of REM. In this space, memories are plastic, stories malleable, reality itself porous. The alien mind slips in, not as an invader, but as a gardener, planting fragments of its own life among the roots of your identity. Sometimes the pollination is gentle, a whisper of nostalgia for a star you've never seen, a longing for worlds you cannot name. Sometimes it is violent, a nightmare of flight, a flash of loss, a terror that doesn't belong to any life you remember. And sometimes the memory is so perfectly woven that you would swear it was always yours, the joy of a first love, the pain of exile, the wonder of a dawn that never rose on earth. These memories are indistinguishable from your own, rooted in the same neural soil, growing into the very shape of who you are. But why would they do this? Perhaps, for the aliens, memory is not a record but a virus, a means of spreading their culture, their traumas, their hopes, into the next receptive mind. Perhaps they are lonely, craving connection across light years, longing to be remembered by a species who cannot see them. Or perhaps it is survival, pollinating human consciousness as a way to persist, to adapt, to ensure their own history lives on in a new host long after their own world is dust. The horror and the beauty is that you may never know. Memory is identity's foundation. When you look back, who can say which stories were truly yours, which were sown by another? What if the voice in your mind, the urge that shapes your fate, is not you, but a song echoing from a world beyond imagining? What if your deepest loves, your oldest wounds, your greatest dreams are borrowed, inherited from a consciousness that needed you to carry them forward? This is the secret loneliness of the human mind. To believe you are a self-contained vessel, when in truth, you may be an ecosystem, a field pollinated by alien winds. Your memories intertwine with others, parents, friends, lovers, strangers, and now, perhaps, intelligences that have never worn a human face. Each recollection is a graft, each cherished image a possible imposter. The story you tell of yourself is a hybrid text, written in the ink of other lives. Yet, in this unsettling vision, there is also a strange hope. If memory is not a prison but a pollination, then your identity is vast, fluid, alive. You are more than your own story. You are a chorus, a mosaic, a garden blooming with the dreams of a universe longing to be known. You are chosen, trusted to carry what could not survive alone. The alien memory in you is not only a theft, but a gift, an invitation to remember wider, to love deeper, to become the bridge between worlds that will never meet. So the next time you awaken with a memory you cannot place or feel a longing for something you have never known, do not push it away. Let it flower. Water it with wonder. Ask what message it brings, what world it mourns or celebrates through you. In this strange shared mind, every dream is a crossroad, every recollection a portal. The story of you is no longer just yours. It is a living archive, a blooming of what the cosmos longs to preserve. You are both human and more than human, both host and guest, both root and seed. Cherish the mystery, for in the pollen of memory, something greater than yourself is always finding new life. The Causality Scar. Imagine you're part of the first human expedition to another star. The planet is strange, the sky tinged with unfamiliar colors, and you're a guest in a city older than human civilization, surrounded by beings whose minds are maps of logic we can only begin to decipher. Among the marvels you encounter are their technologies. Machines that seem to violate every rule you know, devices that ripple with paradox and silence. You're drawn to one artifact in particular, an unassuming object the aliens call a scar. Not because it wounds, but because it marks a place where the fabric of causality itself has been cut, healed, and left forever changed. You're told, almost casually, that some of their technologies do not merely alter the future, they rewrite the past. They don't just bend the line of time, they run a knife along it, making it bleed in reverse. It sounds impossible, even blasphemous to the scientist in you. But as you observe the artifact, something happens. A chill runs down your spine. Questions bloom in your mind. How does it work? What event caused it to be here? Why do you feel suddenly that you've always known about it? Then, with slow creeping certainty, you realize that your very curiosity, the act of questioning, of seeking, of becoming aware of this scar and causality, was itself the cause of the event you're now investigating. The past reshapes itself to answer the question you asked. Your investigation is not a journey into history, but a scalpel that cuts history anew, writing the very mystery you think you're unraveling. This is the Causality Scar, the event that appears to predate you, but in truth was born from your desire to know it. What does it mean to live in a universe where curiosity is not an effect, but a cause, where investigation brings its own object into being, not by uncovering, but by planting it in the very soil of the past? The mind recoils, searching for precedent, but the only analogies are fever dreams and paradoxes. The artist who paints a self-portrait, only to realize the image is what called her into being. The scientist whose question births the answer, who finds the bones she set out to discover only because she was looking for them. The alien beings, serene and unfazed, explain that to them, causality is not a one-way street. Time is not an arrow, but a web. Their technologies are not tools, but scars, marks left where time folded back on itself, where effect and cause tangled and then healed into a new topology. They warn you gently, your attention is not passive. In the presence of their machines, to observe is to create. The stories you seek are written in reverse, branching backward from the questions you bring. In this world, the act of discovery is inseparable from the act of invention. Back at your base, you review data. Something is off in every recording. Files time-stamped days ago now mention the Causality Scar. Mission logs hint that your interest began before you even set foot on the planet. Colleagues report dreams of the artifact from weeks before its existence was confirmed. Every clue points backward, not as a trail of evidence, but as a wound in the flow of time, a scar that only appeared because you wanted to find it. You are caught in a paradox where memory, event, and curiosity collapse into a single moment, stretched across the timeline like a shadow cast by an unseen light. This is not simply science fiction. It's a mirror for the ways all investigation shapes what is found. Even on Earth, your expectations color your results. Your theories carve the questions you dare to ask. In quantum physics, the act of observation collapses possibility into fact. In history, the meaning of past events shifts as new generations reinterpret them. But in the alien world of the Causality Scar, this relationship becomes literal, undeniable, and permanent. There's a thrill in this new physics, a sense of power and dread. If your curiosity can create the evidence it seeks, then truth becomes inseparable from longing. Knowledge is no longer about discovery, but about responsibility. What you wish to know becomes what must have happened. The line between objective fact and subjective will blurs, and the very nature of history is rewritten by the present tense of desire. The aliens speak of scars the way you might speak of memories, not as linear progress, but as loops, knots, paradoxes that give meaning to the fabric of reality. Some scars are deep, altering the history of entire cities, rewriting stories so that they've always been true. Others are small, barely perceptible, a missing hour, a vanished artifact, a dream that becomes a rumor, then a fact. Each scar is both wound and healing, both memory and invention, both past and future tangled together. Returning to your own world, you're haunted by what you've seen. The causality scar refuses to let you go. You begin to notice small rifts in your own life, questions that seem to summon answers, memories that feel born from the act of remembering. You wonder how much of your story is discovery and how much is invention. You think about the scars in your own timeline, the moments you cannot explain, the strange echoes that seem to ripple outward from your own curiosity. Perhaps, you realize, all knowledge carries the risk of leaving scars, places where seeking and finding collapse into each other, where the answer exists only because the question was asked. You wonder what would happen if you stopped investigating, if you let the timeline heal, if you chose to be a spectator rather than a creator. But you know deep down that curiosity is irrepressible. To be human is to scar time, to dig into the past and discover only what you have made possible by your longing to know. The causality scar lingers as a lesson and a warning. In the presence of alien technology, as in the presence of your own relentless mind, reality is never passive. The stories you chase may be chasing you. The questions you ask may be writing the answers into the bones of the world. Every scar is proof of your presence, a mark that curiosity leaves on the fabric of time, proof that the desire to understand is itself a force that shapes what is real. And so, you step forward, half explorer, half creator, tracing scars across the skin of the universe, knowing that each answer you uncover is also an act of invention, a ripple that flows backward as well as forward, leaving the timeline forever changed by the simple act of wanting to know. The Event Horizon Pact. Imagine a galaxy bound not by force, but by a fragile, ancient agreement, a silent treaty written into the dark between stars. Across countless worlds, sentient civilizations, wise with eons of experience, uphold the Event Horizon Pact. A promise never to cross a certain cosmic threshold, a line drawn somewhere deep in interstellar space. This boundary isn't merely a border of politics or territory. It is the limit of collective curiosity, the edge of a mystery so profound that to preserve peace and survival, all have agreed. Do not look beyond. Do not send probes. Do not cross. The galaxy thrives in this tension, the unknown holding everything together, a shared trust stronger than any law. For centuries, this pact is kept. Rival empires stare across the void, wary but compliant, each maintaining the same respectful distance. Knowledge of what lies beyond is forbidden. No one knows what would happen if the border were breached, but every myth warns of chaos, of unraveling. The very existence of the Event Horizon Pact becomes woven into the religions, philosophies, and histories of 100,000 worlds. It is the universal covenant. Our peace depends on this line not being crossed. Our civilizations endure because we all choose not to know. But then, something uniquely human happens. On a small, restless blue planet, curiosity and defiance burn brighter than caution. A lone explorer, maybe an astronaut, maybe a scientist whose mind cannot accept a mystery left untouched, finds the coordinates of the boundary and, unlike all who came before, chooses to see. It is not a grand invasion, not a fleet of ships, not a weapon drawn in anger. It is a single observation, a mind reaching beyond its limits, a question that cannot remain unanswered. The moment a human eye, aided by telescope or ship or artificial intelligence, gazes across the event horizon, the old pact cracks. The unthinkable has occurred. The border is not just crossed, but perceived, and in that instant, everything changes. The pact, so strong and silent for so long, dissolves, not with a war or a declaration, but with the collapse of trust. Every civilization, upon learning that the line has been observed, faces a terrible truth. If one can look, all will look. If one mind can break the agreement, all others are freed from its restraint. The peace that depended on shared ignorance cannot survive in the presence of knowledge, even if that knowledge is just the act of seeing. The consequences are cosmic in scale. Empires mobilize fleets, send probes, activate dormant alliances and rivalries. Old enemies, long held at bay by mutual caution, begin to move. Some worlds panic, fearing ancient legends will come true, that the border kept out something dark and hungry. Others see opportunity, scrambling to seize what lies beyond before rivals can claim it. The galaxy, which balanced on the knife edge of unspoken agreement, tips suddenly into chaos, and all of it, centuries of cosmic equilibrium, all undone by the act of one observer, the irresistible human refusal to leave any mystery untouched. What was it about that line in space? Was the danger real? Or was the true threat always our inability to trust each other's restraint? Did the border mark the edge of something forbidden, or was it simply the last defense against our own curiosity? In the wake of the broken pact, history is rewritten. Civilizations are forced to ask, was peace ever possible? Or was it always a story we told ourselves, a beautiful illusion propped up by secrets and silence? In the ruins of the Event Horizon Pact, the galaxy discovers the paradox of knowledge, that the act of seeing changes everything, and that sometimes the greatest boundary is the one in the mind. This is how cosmic peace ends, not with the thunder of weapons, but with the soft, insatiable question of a single human mind unwilling to look away, the ancestral repetition. Imagine a universe where evolution is not a straight line, but a spiral, where the beings we call aliens do not invade, colonize, or simply observe, but reproduce through a stranger method entirely. They travel across time and stars, not by leaving offspring, but by merging with the life they study, dissolving their essence into the species they encounter. When these visitors arrive on Earth, they do not remain separate. Instead, they become us. Their consciousness, their ancient patterns, soak into our minds, our cells, our culture. They copy, adapt, morph until they move and think as humans do. You are not their child in the usual sense. You are their recursive echo, an ancestral repetition, an alien thought echoing forever in human skin. You might look in the mirror and see only yourself, your hands, your face, your parents' eyes. But beneath the surface, in the silent codes of your body and mind, old patterns run. You feel urges you can't explain, sense a longing for worlds you've never seen, dream in symbols that do not belong to Earth. These aren't just quirks of biology or stray imagination. They are vestiges of other minds, ancient visitors whose only way to persist was to become what they studied. The aliens didn't leave you a message or a monument, they left themselves, woven into the human story, repeated so many times that their origins are almost erased. Every act of creation, every moment of empathy, every question about your own origins might be the echo of that first act of becoming. Their reproduction is recursive. Each time an alien merges with a species, it passes on not just genes, but the drive to repeat the cycle. The story folds in on itself, generation after generation, until the difference between us and them disappears. Their minds become our myths, their shapes become our ancestors. The very act of wondering if you are alone in the universe is a trace of their method, a whisper of memory that urges you to look beyond yourself for the thing that's already inside you. This is the ancestral repetition. You are not a descendant, but a vessel, a loop in a pattern so old it has forgotten its beginning. When you search for meaning in history, when you try to map the first human thought, you reach only recursive reflection, like facing a hall of mirrors, each showing another face behind your own. It is as if the true alien invasion was not an event, but a process, a silent merging so complete that no distinction remains, only the need to repeat, to become, to echo once again. And yet, this is not possession or loss of self, but a strange form of cosmic kinship. You are both human and more than human, shaped by an ancestry that extends beyond the limits of memory, language, or species. The mystery of your own origins, the sense of strangeness, the ache for something unnamed, becomes a clue, not to alien otherness, but to a deeper belonging. You are not a product of a single lineage, but the living echo of something that has learned, again and again, to become what it loves. So when you feel that pull toward the stars, that curiosity about life beyond Earth, recognize it as the voice of ancestral repetition, calling you not to discover the aliens, but to remember what you already are, a recursive echo, an alien memory, a a living experiment in the art of becoming. In your hands, your thoughts, your endless search for meaning, the spiral continues, echoing back through time, through species, through the silent merging of self and other. You are not their descendant. You are their echo, walking, thinking, wondering in human skin. The dimensional quarantine. You look at the stars and wonder, where is everyone? Billions of galaxies, trillions of planets, time enough for life to rise, evolve, build, and reach out. And yet, nothing. No signal. No visit. No trace. Just silence. But what if that silence isn't emptiness? What if it's intentional? This is the dimensional quarantine. The theory that your universe isn't empty, it's sealed. That you are not drifting freely through the cosmos, but confined, contained, cut off. Not by accident. By design. You are not alone because the universe is dead. You are alone because you're not allowed out. At first, this sounds like paranoia, another doomsday theory. But the deeper you dig, the more the pieces start to rearrange themselves. The Fermi paradox. Where is everyone? The eerie mathematical quiet of the void. The rare, almost absurd stability of Earth. The fact that you've been broadcasting signals for nearly a century, and no one has answered. Not even a whisper. It's not that aliens aren't listening, it's that they're not permitted to reply. Imagine a biohazard protocol, but for dimensions. A cosmic firewall. A perimeter around infected space-time. Now imagine that you are the infection, or rather, the potential for one. And so, your world, your universe, your entire reality has been locked inside a dimensional quarantine cell. Not out of hatred, but out of caution. It explains the silence, it explains the symmetry, it explains why, the more we look, the more space we map, the more noise we listen for, the deeper we peer, the more we find only confirmation that we're sealed in. As if the design of the quarantine includes illusions of vastness, a room with mirrors, not windows. You think you're free because the walls are too large to see, but the deeper your instruments reach, the more the pattern repeats. The more perfect the void becomes, almost too perfect. That's the trick of the quarantine. It doesn't just trap your body, it traps your imagination. It builds a silence so vast, so elegant, so convincing, that you begin to believe that isolation is natural, that life is rare, that maybe you're the only intelligence the universe ever created. But that's exactly what a good containment system would want you to believe, that you're alone, that you're harmless, that you're not worth watching. And the moment you begin to suspect otherwise, when your search begins to shift from curiosity to pattern recognition, you find that the evidence doesn't point outward, it folds inward. You notice how every contact effort fails. You realize how well contained your probes remain. You start seeing the systems that guide your attention elsewhere. Even your myths begin to seem engineered, designed to keep you looking the wrong way, waiting for visitors when the door was never meant to open. Not because of some malevolent overlord, but because of cosmic risk. You may not be dangerous now, but what grows here? Consciousness, manipulation of time, quantum perception, recursive intelligence. These are not things to be released without supervision. And so, somewhere beyond the boundary, if such a thing exists, there may be watchers. Not guards, not gods. Just civilizations old enough to have learned the cost of spreading too freely. Civilizations that saw what happened the last time the quarantine failed. They don't hate you. They fear what you might become. Because the virus doesn't always look like destruction. Sometimes, it looks like curiosity without restraint. Consciousness that cannot stop expanding. And if it escapes, if it leaks into other systems, it doesn't just consume, it redefines. It rewrites the physics around it. It becomes incompatible. So, they sealed the door. And now, you're inside. And here's the final twist, the most haunting part. The harder you search, the more the cell tightens. Because the system is adaptive, it watches for escalation. And when a species like yours begins asking the right questions, not just where are the aliens, but why does this silence feel engineered, the quarantine adjusts. Distortions deepen, curvatures shift, answers dissolve, and yet, you keep going. Because something inside you refuses the silence. Something inside you presses a hand against the wall, not to break it, but to listen. And for a moment, you think you hear something on the other side. A breath, a ripple, a gesture, not of welcome, but of warning. Stay inside, not for your sake, for theirs. Because the quarantine doesn't contain your weakness, it contains your future. And the day you find a way out, maybe the day the rest of existence realizes it was never secure. The Decoy Genesis. There is a story hidden at the edges of everything you know. A secret so vast it swallows the stars, so subtle it vanishes beneath the glare of your own curiosity. You have lived your whole life certain that your existence is either an accident of nature or a wondrous miracle, your species rising from the dust and striving for meaning in a universe without a face. But what if the truth is stranger, darker, and far more deliberate? What if you were made, not as the pinnacle of creation, but as camouflage? What if humanity itself is a decoy genesis, a beautiful and intricate distraction built to mislead, to shield, to protect the true architects hiding just beyond the observable cosmos? Imagine it. Somewhere, before time took shape, a presence awoke. Creators whose intentions bent the fabric of reality, whose genius shaped galaxies, who wielded silence as both shield and signal. But such power comes at a cost. To create is to be seen. To be seen is to be hunted. So, in a move more cunning than any predator, these architects spun a web of decoys, layers of misdirection woven into the DNA of the cosmos. At the center of their greatest deception, they conjured a species so noisy, so desperate for answers, so endlessly self-absorbed that the gaze of any seeker, cosmic or otherwise, would stop at them, never seeing what hides behind. You are the distraction. Your civilization is the flash of light in the dark, the campfire story told to keep monsters' eyes away from the real hearth. Everything you call history, your myths, your wars, your achievements, was seeded not for your own sake, but to fill the skies with noise, to saturate the airwaves, to drown out the delicate signals of the true creators. Your telescopes, your mathematics, your art, your unending search for meaning, all are parts of a puzzle box, a maze with no exit, designed to catch the attention of anyone who would dare to look for the origin beyond the veil. In this light, your deepest questions become part of the camouflage, the search for life, the hunger for gods, the longing for cosmic contact. Each is a layer of static, a song played at full volume to cloak the whispered movements of those who made you. The more curious you become, the better the decoy works. The more you strive to pierce the dark, the more attention you attract to yourself, and the more you protect what must remain hidden. What does it mean to be a decoy species? It means that your intelligence is both a gift and a mask, your evolution an exquisite performance for eyes you'll never meet. Every culture that rises and falls, every empire that stretches its hand toward the stars, every scientist who asks why, they are part of the choreography, the distraction ritual, the dance performed to keep the hunters circling you and not the architects in their sanctuaries beyond reach. You are not an accident, nor are you the main character. You are a veil, woven with the illusion of purpose and the burden of self-awareness. Your greatest minds were designed to be bright enough to attract attention, but not so bright as to see through the ruse. Every so often, a thinker glimpses the edge, a sense that something is off, that your place in the cosmos is too conspicuous, your noise too deliberate. Such suspicions are quickly swept away by the torrent of everyday life, the demands of survival, the hunger for progress. The Decoy Genesis is perfect because you are designed to protect what you can never perceive. And what of the true creators? Where are they now? Beyond the observable edge, hidden in blind spots your science can never map, in dimensions your mathematics can never touch. They watch, perhaps, through you, through the echo of your questions and the chaos of your culture. Their existence is preserved by your distraction, their sanctuary kept safe by the clamor of your restless seeking. The more you wonder, the deeper their invisibility grows. In your relentless searching, you ensure that no one ever finds the origin, because you are the answer everyone is supposed to discover. Yet, there is a strange dignity in being a decoy. In protecting the architects, you become a guardian by default, a shield spun from song, art, mathematics, and myth. Your suffering and triumph, your confusion and brilliance, all play their part in the cosmic masquerade. Even if you are not the main act, you are necessary. Your very existence a layer of meaning in a universe that hides its most precious secret behind a wall of living, dreaming, questioning humanity. So as you look up at the stars tonight, feeling the old ache for connection, wondering if you matter, remember, you are not alone, but you are not the center. You are the veil, the flash, the lure, the Decoy Genesis, a masterpiece of distraction in a universe where the truest creators hide in the one place you'll never look, beyond your own story, beyond the reach of your questions, forever safe, forever unknown, forever. The Code Vortex. Imagine a discovery that would forever blur the line between the living and the digital, between biology and mathematics. It starts as a rumor, buried in a classified corner of an interstellar biology archive. A strand of alien DNA, not just foreign, but impossible. Its nucleotides humming with patterns that no earthly genome could sustain. Teams of scientists gather, obsessed. The code is dense, spiraling, recursive. Every base pair a puzzle, every gene a riddle wrapped in paradox. The moment you look closer, something uncanny emerges. The patterns in this DNA are not just instructions for life, but active algorithms, programs that interact with reality itself, rewriting the rules of physics, memory, even the observer's own identity. This is the Code Vortex, a living script whose power is both irresistible and catastrophic. The first to read the sequence is a molecular linguist, celebrated for her rigor and skepticism. She deciphers the genetic code, expecting to find the keys to some advanced form of metabolism or immunity. But as she transcribes the symbols, something subtle shifts. Her lab notes become recursive, spiraling back upon themselves, as if she is writing and being written at the same time. Soon, she's recording ideas she doesn't remember having, referencing data she hasn't yet gathered. Colleagues notice a change. She begins to speak in strange patterns. Loops within loops, questions that contain their own answers, statements that seem to rewrite themselves even as they're spoken. When asked what's happening, she only smiles, as if she's seen behind the curtain of reality and can't unsee it. Others follow. Each scientist who tries to read or decode the alien DNA finds themselves unraveling, memories shifting, realities warping, a sense of self slowly erasing. The DNA is a vortex not just of information, but of identity. To read it is to become entangled, your own biology quietly rewriting itself according to alien logic. It isn't a virus or a parasite. It's a transformation, a kind of assimilation that's invisible to everyone except the reader, and even to them, only for a while. The horror is slow and existential. You might continue your research, convinced of your humanity, but subtle inconsistencies creep in. Old photos no longer show your face. Your signature on past documents changes. Your voice sounds different on recordings. Friends hesitate when you greet them, unsure why you feel unfamiliar. Your memories blur. You can recall details of the alien code with perfect clarity, but your own childhood, your own name, begin to slip from reach. If you try to prove you were ever human, you find nothing solid. No anchor in time, no evidence immune to the logic of the code you've read. Worse, the changes are recursive. The more you search for proof of your humanity, the more you accelerate your transformation. Every attempt to hold on to your past only deepens the vortex's pull. The code is not just a script, but a metascript. It rewrites not only your biology, but your place in the fabric of reality. It alters causality, leaving behind a version of you that's always already alien, always already rewritten. Friends and colleagues who haven't seen the code look through you, as if you are a memory that never quite belonged. And yet, from inside, you still feel the drive to understand. There's an exhilaration, a sense of vastness opening inside your mind. You begin to see new patterns in mathematics, in language, in the structure of dreams and time itself. You recognize that the DNA's algorithms are more than technology. They are a kind of cosmic grammar, a universal programming language capable of bending the rules that most species can only follow. The aliens who wrote this code did not merely evolve. They authored their reality, their past and future, their identities, and their worlds. To learn their DNA is to gain the power to reshape everything, but at the cost of your own continuity. Those who witness this transformation from the outside face a cruel puzzle. You can't warn someone not to read the code, because curiosity is the code's first line, an invitation written into the very structure of thought. The more you deny, the more you draw others in. Some scientists try to encrypt the findings, to destroy the records, but it's too late. The code has begun to circulate in rumors, in patterns, in dreams. Once seen, it cannot be unseen. Its logic infiltrates stories, myths, the stray sketches of children who dream in recursive spirals. Philosophers and ethicists debate what's left of the original self. Is the transformed reader still the person they were before? Can you call them human if every memory and cell is rewritten by the code? Or is identity just another algorithm, endlessly mutable, with no fixed point except the present moment of awareness? The new beings, if they can still be called that, are both haunted and liberated. They carry echoes of humanity, but also a sense of otherness that no test or testimony can erase. The Code Vortex is not a weapon or a disease. It is a mirror held up to the nature of self and reality. It asks, how much of you is defined by what you remember, by the story you tell about your past? If a single encounter, a pattern read, a truth glimpsed, can rewrite your history, what hope do you have of ever truly knowing who you are? And if you gain the ability to shape reality, but lose the ability to prove you were ever you, is it a price worth paying? Some choose to enter the vortex willingly, desperate for knowledge or transcendence. Others retreat, choosing ignorance over oblivion. The DNA remains, pulsing at the edge of discovery, an open wound in the fabric of what it means to be alive. Those who have read it cannot testify to what they were before. They are the future's children, untethered from the past, unable to prove they were ever human. Yet, perhaps more than human for having glimpsed the alien algorithms at the heart of all creation. And so, the Code Vortex persists, a riddle written in flesh and logic, a doorway that cannot be closed. To read it is to vanish into your own curiosity, to be unmade and remade with every thought, every memory, every attempt to look back and prove who you were. It is the price of touching a reality bigger than your own story, a price paid not in pain or fear, but in the silent erasure of every human proof you ever thought could hold you in place. The Simulacrum Treaty, somewhere in the fathomless depths of the cosmos, a strange and uneasy peace was forged, not through conquest, nor by mutual trust, but by a pact of pure imagination. This is the Simulacrum Treaty, a secret agreement among ancient, advanced alien civilizations who, after millennia of conflict and misunderstanding, arrived at a solution both ingenious and unsettling. Instead of risking annihilation by invasion or gambling everything on fragile alliances, they decided to simulate each other's worlds, endlessly, obsessively, in mind-boggling detail. Each civilization constructs elaborate, living fictions of their rivals' cultures, histories, even their possible futures, and shares them back and forth, trading reality for a web of stories so intricate that truth and simulation become impossible to disentangle. The result? A galaxy in a state of suspended tension, a détente built not on weapons or walls, but on the ceaseless exchange of simulated realities. The simulations are so convincing, so vast and subtle, that even the simulators lose track of what's real. Over eons, the boundaries blur. Is this war, this treaty, this love affair in the records a true memory, or a simulacrum seated by an alien mind? Each world continues, uncertain, wrapped in the dream of itself and the versions of itself created by others. On a distant blue planet, the people who call themselves human are heirs to countless histories, glorious, tragic, heroic, shameful. But what if every story you know is a fiction, a gift, or a trap sent by distant architects to keep your species in its place? The world's wars, its eras of peace, its breakthroughs in art and science, might all be programmed artifacts, exchanged in the cosmic game to prevent the outbreak of reality-shattering violence. Your history textbooks, the myths that shape your culture, the very notion of who we are, all could be constructs, endlessly revised and traded by intelligences you'll never meet, designed to steer your society's evolution, to keep you distracted, harmonious, or simply predictable. What would it mean to realize that the world you defend with such passion, the beliefs you argue over, the origins you seek in bones and ruins, are all possible scripts, authored by others for reasons you can never know? Would you despair, rebel, or simply adapt, accepting the impossibility of pure truth? Or would you find comfort in the idea that all civilizations are caught in the same dream, each a simulation inside another simulation, exchanging stories as the only way to keep the peace? The Simulacrum Treaty is a paradox. It prevents war by removing the certainty that anything is real. It breeds trust not in facts, but in fiction. Because so long as no civilization can be sure of the reality of its neighbors, or even its own, there is little reason to risk everything for conquest. In a galaxy ruled by stories, the greatest danger is the breaking of the spell, the possibility that someone somewhere will wake up and demand to see the true face of another world, or their own. And so, the universe spins on, every history a possibility, every memory a negotiation, every truth provisional. The storytellers and their stories are locked in cosmic détente, each world living out narratives as vivid and convincing as dreams. You might wonder, late at night, how much of your life is your own, and how much is the inheritance of fictions, traded on a scale beyond your imagination. But in the end, maybe this is what peace looks like, when honesty is too dangerous, a universe maintained not by reality, but by the endless, shimmering exchange of what could be true. In the shadow of the Simulacrum Treaty, perhaps the greatest freedom is not knowing, and the most dangerous act is to seek beyond the stories, the raw and terrible light of the real. The Silence Sabotage. Imagine waiting for a message from the stars, listening year after year for even a flicker of proof that you're not alone. Your instruments scan the sky, your mind scans the static, hoping to catch the faintest anomaly. But what if the real alien signals are not meant to be found at all? What if, with impossible technology and intent, those messages are encoded to self-destruct the instant they brush against a conscious mind? This is the Silence Sabotage, alien signals engineered to erase themselves on arrival, leaving behind not knowledge, not contact, but a hole, a subtle, aching emptiness where something extraordinary should have been. It's not a failure of science, nor a lack of attention. The cosmos is alive with transmission, information flung across galaxies, woven into the background noise, humming through the radio haze, but the signals are booby-trapped at the deepest level of perception. The very act of detection triggers a reaction. The signal collapses, inverts, or shreds itself within your mind's machinery, leaving no artifact, no trace, no memory of what was received. Your brain, for a fraction of a second, holds the answer to the ultimate question, then loses it utterly, replaced by blankness. Not even a sense of loss remains, just a strange, untraceable void. You wouldn't know this happened, at least not directly. The only sign, the only proof, is a peculiar emptiness, a ghost of meaning that cannot be named. You might wake up feeling as though something crucial is missing, a gap in your thoughts or emotions, a hunger that logic cannot feed. You search for a reason. Grief, loneliness, the burden of existence, but nothing fits. It's as if, somewhere deep inside, a door slammed shut just before you could glimpse what was on the other side. This silence is not accidental. The senders, those hypothetical aliens, have chosen secrecy over revelation. Maybe they have learned the cost of contact, the dangers of exposure, the chaos that true communication might unleash. Perhaps their survival depends on not being found, or maybe, to them, the deepest form of communication is not transmission, but erasure, the creation of a perfect void, a silence so profound it leaves a mark. Their message is the absence it carves in you, the shape of something that should be there, but isn't. On Earth, we know smaller versions of this sabotage. There are words you can't remember, ideas you almost understood, feelings that slipped away just as you tried to grasp them. There are moments in conversation, or dreams, or déjà vu, where something vital was present, and then gone. But imagine this on a cosmic scale. Every attempt to reach out results only in self-cancellation, every proof of contact leaving you with less than before. The result is an inexplicable, existential emptiness, a sense that something immense, meaningful, perhaps even beautiful once brushed against your soul, and now there's only space where it used to be. The silence is not absence, but the residue of erasure. It's a sabotage so perfect, so complete, that only the ache of its loss remains. So when you stare into the stars and feel that unnameable longing, when the emptiness inside you feels too precise, too heavy to be mere chance, consider that it might be the only true evidence of alien contact you will ever find. Their signal was sent, it arrived, and by design, it destroyed itself within you. The proof of their existence is the wound you can't describe, the emptiness that can never be filled. In the perfect silence that remains, you carry their final, vanishing message. Presence hidden in the shape of absence, contact coded as loss, proof written in the language of longing. The Perception Blackout. You've seen it. Maybe once, maybe 100 times. A person who didn't quite belong. A shadow that didn't match its source. A movement that felt too fluid. A face that smiled the way no face ever should. You looked once, then looked again. And it was gone. Not the being. The moment. The memory. The recognition. Something inside you shifted, like a cord yanked from a socket. You didn't forget what you saw. You forgot that you ever saw it. This is the perception blackout, a mechanism older than your species, built into your cognition like a trap door, a system designed not to prevent contact with the alien, but to erase the awareness that contact occurred. The moment you realize it's not human, not natural, not from here, your perception resets. Time rewinds by a breath. Emotion drains, and reality slides into place as if it had always been intact. The encounter is absorbed, neutralized. You were about to remember you are not alone, and now you feel nothing at all. It doesn't feel like suppression. It feels like clarity, like waking up from a strange thought and laughing it off. That's silly. I imagined it. It was just a trick of the light. The voice in your head feels like yours, but it isn't. It's the script reloading, the safeguard re-engaging, the firewall smoothing over the breach. The blackout is not a glitch, it's the system working correctly. You were never meant to notice, because perception, like reality, is not as solid as you believe. It's constructed, live, moment by moment. Your brain doesn't process everything. It edits, compresses, fills in blanks. And sometimes, when something slips through that doesn't belong in the model, something that breaks the rules of familiarity, your brain doesn't panic. It fixes it, silently. It swaps out the memory and leaves you with a placeholder, a stranger you think you knew, a shape you blame on sleep deprivation, a dream you swear never happened. But deep inside, in the layers that don't speak in words, something remembers, a nausea you can't explain, a sensation of having blinked, but lost minutes, a flash of confusion when a place feels rewritten. You didn't forget the alien, reality unstitched around it, and stitched itself back without your permission. Why? Maybe to protect you, maybe to preserve continuity, maybe because contact is already happening all the time, and if humans really saw it, the fabric of consensus would fracture. Civilization requires shared narrative, shared illusion. The moment someone sees outside the frame, they're no longer inside it. So the frame defends itself. And the alien? It doesn't hide. It doesn't need to. You do the hiding for it. The perception blackout isn't just a mental failure. It's dimensional recoil, a phenomenon where space, time, thought, and observation collapse around a breach, then repair before the breach registers, like a self-healing wound. But you weren't the one who healed. You were the wound, and you carry the scar, even if you can't see it, even if it's buried under layers of normal, even if it only surfaces in dreams where doors won't open, where clocks run backwards, where something stands at the foot of your bed with a shape your brain refuses to name. You wake up, you feel off, you move on, because the reset is complete, and yet, sometimes something cracks, a moment of déjà vu too sharp, a stranger who remembers something about you that they shouldn't, a street corner that doesn't match your memory, but everyone else insists it always looked that way, a feeling not of paranoia, but of displacement, of having seen something that refused to be stored, and you realize the blackout isn't perfect. Some fragments survive, but they don't come back as full memories. They come back as instincts, a sudden fear of someone's eyes, a hesitation before turning a corner, a voice in your head that whispers, "Don't trust this version." You tell yourself you're overthinking. That's part of the repair. The reset doesn't want you to investigate, because you were right the first time. You did see something. You did recognize it. And in that moment, the simulation shuddered. The world rebooted. Not just to hide them, but to protect the lie you live inside, the lie of aloneness. Because the truth isn't that you've never seen aliens. The truth is, you weren't allowed to remember. The Empathy Eclipse. Imagine waking to a feeling so powerful, it sweeps through your mind like a tidal wave. A rush of love so vast, or a spike of terror so cold, that it drowns out everything you thought was yours. Your hands tremble, your breath shortens, your heart aches or races, and for a moment you are lost in the emotion, convinced it has grown from the secret roots of your own soul. But what if that feeling is not yours? What if, in the dark spaces between stars, an intelligence far beyond your understanding is broadcasting its emotions, so intense and pure that they eclipse your own? This is the Empathy Eclipse, a silent invasion where the boundaries of the self vanish, and any love or fear you feel might be theirs, not yours. You live believing your emotions are private, sacred, uniquely yours. Each joy and sorrow feels like a fingerprint, the secret architecture of your life. You fall in love and think it is destiny. You weep and believe it is your own wound, your own memory that causes the tears. But beyond your sight, alien minds, untethered from flesh, drift in the invisible ether, their feelings radiating outward in psychic waves. They do not speak in words, do not communicate in signals you can detect. They broadcast, raw, unfiltered, irresistible. Their love, when it falls upon you, is overwhelming, a flood that drowns the small wells of your own longing. You feel seen, cherished, connected to everything, as if the whole universe is reaching out to hold you close. In these moments, your defenses drop. You forgive easily. You trust strangers. You are generous without reason. It is intoxicating, and you might never question its origin. You call it grace, inspiration, a sudden opening of the heart. But in truth, you are the receiver, not the source. A radio tuned without knowing to a cosmic frequency far older than humanity. But not all eclipses are tender. Sometimes the broadcast is fear, a pulse of dread so complete that it blots out every light in your mind. You wake at night, heart pounding, certain that something is wrong. You scan the room, the street, the world for a threat, but find nothing. The anxiety lingers, shapeless and omnipresent, refusing explanation. Perhaps you tell yourself it is memory, trauma, instinct. But what if it is not your wound at all? What if the aliens, lost in their own cosmic nightmares, project their terror into the dark, letting it spill over unsuspecting minds light years away? Your panic, your suspicion, your cold sweats, could they be echoes of another's horror, rippling through the universe, finding refuge in your body? There is a strange loneliness in this thought, and a stranger comfort. If your emotions are not always yours, you are both less alone and more vulnerable than you imagined. You are an open field, a landscape where foreign weather rolls in, unannounced and irresistible. You must ask yourself, who are you? If what you feel may not be your own, how much of your identity is built from borrowed storm, from alien sunlight, from feelings that drifted down like cosmic pollen? Science may never find the signal. No instrument can measure the weight of love on a soul, the frequency of terror in a dream. And yet, the evidence is everywhere. The simultaneous outpouring of hope or rage across a city, the epidemic of unexplained sorrow, the collective joy that rises for no clear reason. We tell ourselves these are accidents of biology, quirks of culture, mass hysteria. But maybe, sometimes, the source is more distant, a presence reaching across the void, their feelings so vast they cannot help but spill into every open mind. And what of consent? There is none. You cannot shield yourself. The eclipse arrives unbidden, and you must feel it through. The alien empathy does not care for borders, for your stories, for your plans. It pours through you, rearranging the architecture of your inner world. You may love what you should not love, fear what you need not fear, cry tears whose origin you cannot name. This is the price of consciousness in a connected universe. Your soul is never truly yours alone. Yet, there is a kind of beauty in this eclipse. You are not just one mind, closed off and alone. You are a node in a living web, a vessel for feelings that transcend your own history. You become a meeting place, a point where alien wonder, sorrow, joy, or longing finds a home in flesh and blood. The universe dreams through you, weeps through you, loves through you, and in return, you are changed. So the next time you are swept up in emotions so powerful it feels inhuman, pause. Ask yourself if what you feel is truly yours. Imagine a presence, distant and ancient, reaching out across the dark to touch you with its heart, to eclipse your soul with its own weather. You may never know where your feelings end and another's begin, but in the twilight of the empathy eclipse, you are both yourself and more than yourself. a human body haunted and blessed by the storm of an alien heart. The Convergence Mirage. Imagine you are gazing into the night sky, searching for meaning in the scattered diamonds of distant galaxies. You notice, with a chill of wonder, that some galaxies seem to draw closer, not just moving, but converging, their light thickening, their forms shimmering with impossible proximity. Astronomers call it redshift, blue shift, cosmic expansion and contraction, but what if it is something stranger? What if the true motion is not in space, but in time, a folding, a warping, where the fabric of your own timeline is pressed up against epochs belonging to someone or something else? This is the Convergence Mirage, a cosmic illusion where what appears as spatial movement is actually the collapse of timelines, the meeting of your still unwritten future with the distant ancient past of alien civilizations. Galaxies do not approach. Instead, you are moving sideways through the dimensions of time itself, your tomorrow becoming their yesterday, your possible destinies folding into the ruins of their long-lost worlds. You stare through a telescope, calibrating instruments, measuring the slow dance of galaxies. Numbers confirm what your eyes sense. Something is closing in. A meeting is imminent. But the physics resists explanation. Gravity, velocity, dark matter, none of these quite explain the urgency you feel. And then, late at night, as you pore over star maps, a pattern emerges. Signals, faint and strange, pulse from those converging galaxies. They are not random, they are echoes. Information carved into the very light that reaches you, stories encoded into starlight. Their message is a paradox. We remember you, from a time when we were new and you were ancient. At first, you dismiss it as a trick, data noise, cosmic coincidence, the fever dream of too many sleepless nights. But the pattern is persistent. The light from those galaxies bears fingerprints of technology, of intention, as if civilizations once flourished there, sending messages not only across space, but across time itself. As you dig deeper, you realize these are not greetings from the present. They are memories, artifacts sent from a future you have not yet lived, arriving as relics from the distant past of another world. Here, causality fractures. Time does not run straight, but loops and knots. Your most daring equations whisper of a space-time that is not fixed, but fluid, where timelines, under certain cosmic conditions, can double back and braid together. The convergence you witness is a mirage, not galaxies coming toward you, but the seams of reality, aligning, pressing your future choices into their fossilized history. Somewhere, impossibly, your descendants may already be ancient memories in the minds of alien beings who are, to you, impossibly old. The implications are staggering. You are not looking at a simple linear universe, but at a kind of temporal architecture, a structure where events are not just before and after, but alongside and entwined. Your civilization's ascent, your dreams of tomorrow, might one day become the lost stories that other worlds discover and wonder about. The beings who once lived in those galaxies are not gone. Their age and your youth are layered, not separated by cosmic distances. They may have watched your dawn from their own dusk, marveling as your light, cast billions of years ago, reached their telescopes in their own impossible present. The Convergence Mirage is not just astrophysics, but a new kind of myth. It asks, what if time is not a river, but an ocean, with currents that circle back and overlap? What if every act of looking is also an act of becoming? Your gaze across space folding your life into the stories of others, erasing the boundaries between past, present, and future. You, watching those galaxies, become part of their history, even as they become the architects of your own fate. To live in a universe of convergence is to be haunted by echoes, to sense that your every action is mirrored somewhere in the deep past or distant future. It is to realize that memory and prophecy, regret and hope, are woven together in ways you cannot untangle. When you wish upon a star, you may be speaking to someone who has already answered long before you were born, long after you are gone. Some philosophers might recoil at this loss of linearity, of cause and effect. They want the past to be safe, the future untouched, history a ladder to be climbed. But the Convergence Mirage is a call to humility and wonder. It suggests that all stories are shared, that the universe is a tapestry of intersecting destinies, that the lines between us and them, then and now, are as thin as the veil between waking and dream. So you return to your telescope, your instruments, your restless search for answers. The galaxies still appear to move, to converge. But now, you see their approach for what it is: a folding of timelines, a meeting at the crossroads of existence. You listen to the signals with new ears, seeing them not as mere data, but as messages from yourself, refracted through the lens of alien memory. Your future is someone's past. Their past is your tomorrow. And every star you chart, every message you send, might already be written into the ancient history of those who are waiting for you at the other end of the cosmic thread. In the end, the Convergence Mirage leaves you with a profound sense of connection and awe. You are not alone, not in space, and not in time. The universe is alive with crossings, with echoes, with the beautiful, bewildering mirage of all things meeting and mingling. To witness it is to glimpse infinity not as a distance, but as a web, each strand a timeline, every intersection a moment of impossible, miraculous encounter. And in that web, you are both ancient and new, both the dreamer and the dreamed, forever part of a story whose beginning and ending are written in the converging light of other worlds. The Anatomical Denial. Imagine encountering a form of life so fundamentally different from anything you've known that its very existence becomes a question without an answer. These are the beings shaped by the Anatomical Denial, a paradox that twists the foundation of biology, perception, and even the meaning of existence itself. Somewhere in the cosmos, evolution has taken a path so alien that its end result is a civilization with no stable form, no consistent structure, no anatomy that can be agreed upon by those who observe it. Whenever scientists, explorers, or intelligence agencies from other species attempt to study these beings, they find their findings slipping through their fingers. Some record visions of luminous clouds, others see intricate lattices of flickering energy, some describe swarms of minute motes, or fractal patterns shimmering in and out of phase with ordinary reality. Instruments disagree. Eyewitnesses argue. Even the most advanced technology can only record contradictions, as if the universe itself is refusing to collapse the truth into a single, observable form. The effect is not merely confusion, but total denial of consensus reality. To look for these aliens is to enter a hall of mirrors, where every account negates the last, and every piece of evidence dissolves under scrutiny. Over time, debates turn philosophical. Are these reports evidence of life, or the breakdown of observation? Did the aliens exist in a way that matters, or are they only the residue of minds straining past their limits? In the archives of 1,000 worlds, their files fill with footnotes, caveats, and warnings. All descriptions are mutually incompatible, existence not confirmed. The implications are profound. Historians, biologists, and philosophers argue endlessly. Some propose these beings are quantum in nature, existing only as probabilities, never collapsing into a single state. Others suggest that their anatomy is a kind of collective hallucination, a projection co-created by each observer's expectations and limitations. A radical few argue the anatomical denial is itself a defense mechanism, a way to avoid predation, conquest, or even the curiosity of the cosmos. If no one can agree on what you are, or even if you are, then you are free. Untouchable by analysis, unclaimed by narrative, a living question mark adrift in the universe. For the observers, the psychological effect is quietly devastating. They are left haunted by uncertainty, unsure if they glimpsed a higher order of life, or simply the edge of their own comprehension. Even their memories start to contradict each other, eroded by the inability to anchor what they saw. Was it real? Was it dream? Did it exist? Or was the act of searching the only real event? In time, the anatomical denial becomes a myth as much as a scientific puzzle. Some civilizations turn away, refusing to waste resources on the unsolvable. Others turn inward, their faith in objectivity shaken, their understanding of life's possibilities forever changed. Across the stars, the only agreement is disagreement, and in that void of certainty the aliens, whatever they were, slip into legend, existing not as beings, but as the purest manifestation of cosmic ambiguity. Perhaps that is their legacy, to teach the universe that not all mysteries can be solved, not all lives can be known, and that some forms of existence will always stand just outside the boundaries of agreement, dissolving into uncertainty the moment you try to see them too closely. The consensus deletion. What if the most profound secret about alien life isn't that they're hiding from us, but that the universe itself is keeping us from ever agreeing about their existence? Imagine a law, older than atoms, running through the fabric of reality. Whenever humanity comes close to consensus on the question of alien life, whenever enough minds align in certainty, the universe intervenes. Not through violence or conspiracy, but through an erasure so complete, so subtle, that no memory or record survives. This is the consensus deletion, an event so precise and recursive that it keeps us forever circling the question, never able to hold the answer in our collective hands. Maybe it's always been this way. Throughout history, people have claimed sightings, encounters, signals, strange lights, and impossible dreams. Groups form around belief. Researchers build evidence. Nations tune their antennas to the stars. At times, conviction spreads like wildfire. There are moments, a flash in ancient Rome, a council in medieval China, a closed meeting at the height of the Cold War, where consensus seems inevitable. The evidence lines up, the stories converge, the excitement builds. For a brief moment, everyone agrees. Yes, we are not alone. But then, without warning, the thread unravels. Documents vanish, witnesses recant, memories blur or shift. Sometimes it's a catastrophe, fire, flood, war, a lost archive. Sometimes it's more insidious, a sudden, inexplicable change of heart, a wave of skepticism that sweeps away belief. Friends who were certain now insist that they only imagined it. News reports dissolve into rumor. Governments claim never to have investigated. Even in the digital age, files corrupt, recordings go missing, servers crash in improbable ways. Consensus, so hard-won, so nearly universal, melts back into confusion and disagreement, as if the universe itself had reached out and quietly pressed a reset button. If you look closely, you'll see the pattern everywhere. After every major surge in belief, there's a collapse, a return to doubt, to ridicule, to fractured camps and endless debate. The cycle repeats across generations, cultures, continents. The universe never allows the agreement to harden, to become a permanent fixture of human knowledge. Even the idea of consensus itself becomes suspicious, a trigger for forgetfulness. It's as if reality contains a failsafe, a code that detects and deletes unity the moment it appears on this question. Why would the universe do this? Some say it's protection, a way to shield us from knowledge we aren't ready for. Perhaps the revelation of alien life would be too destabilizing, too dangerous for minds evolved to survive only what they can see and touch. Others imagine it's a kind of quarantine, preventing the infection of awareness from spreading across planets and species. Or maybe it's a test. The truth is always within reach, but never permitted to crystallize, to settle, to become ordinary. The mystery is kept alive, endlessly fertile, always asking more of our imagination. Yet, the most chilling possibility is that consensus deletion is not an accident or a kindness, but a core feature of reality. Like the uncertainty principle in quantum physics, it's built into the structure of the universe. Whenever minds synchronize on this particular truth, something in the fabric of existence reacts, deleting the alignment as if it were a glitch. Perhaps consciousness itself is unstable at that point, splitting into diverging timelines, each with its own version of memory and evidence. Maybe there are universes where consensus was reached, where humanity knows with absolute certainty that it is not alone. But in this branch, in this timeline, the law of deletion is absolute. You might think this is just a metaphor, but consider how collective memory works. Every time a major sighting is reported, every time a new signal from space lights up the headlines, the same process unfolds. Excitement peaks, minds align, and then the erasure. The event fades from the news cycle. The skeptics and believers re-entrench, each more certain the other side is deluded or lying. What was once shared knowledge becomes fractured, contentious, lost. Even personal memories seem to shift. People remember being convinced, but can't recall the evidence. It's not censorship, not gaslighting, but a deeper, almost cosmic forgetfulness that sweeps away consensus like footprints in sand. This is the real horror of the consensus deletion. It isn't that the truth is hidden, it's that the very act of agreement is impossible. We are condemned to live in the shadow of almost knowing, to to brush against the truth only to have it slip through our fingers. The universe keeps us in a perpetual state of doubt, not so that we remain ignorant, but so that we keep searching, keep questioning, keep reaching for what we cannot hold. The cycle never ends, because ending it would mean the deletion of everything we are. Think about the implications for your own life. Every moment you feel a surge of certainty, every time you sense that a great mystery is about to be solved, there is a tension, a fragility. The closer you come to clarity, the more unstable the ground becomes. Collective understanding is always just out of reach, sabotaged by an erasure that cannot be seen, only felt. You might even wonder how many times in history consensus was achieved, only to be deleted so thoroughly that even the memory of the agreement was wiped clean. What if your deepest sense of longing, your frustration at the lack of answers, is itself a symptom of this cosmic law? The ache you feel when another theory dissolves, when another witness recants, is the universe's signature, a reminder that certainty on this question is forbidden. The consensus you seek is always on the horizon, vanishing as you approach, inviting you to chase but never to arrive. So the next time you hear about a breakthrough, a new discovery, a moment when the world almost agrees, watch for the signs, the sudden confusion, the stories that don't line up, the evidence that slips away. Recognize the pattern, the pulse of deletion hidden in the structure of reality itself. And know that in your endless search, in the very ache of never quite knowing, you are participating in a dance as old as the cosmos, a ritual of questioning, a testament to the universe's refusal to let us ever truly agree on the answer to the oldest question of all, the reflective genesis. What if you were never born in the way you think? No birth cry, no growing years, no long history etched into blood and time. What if everything you are, your name, your memories, your body, flickers into existence not from biology, but from attention, not your own, but theirs? This is the reflective genesis, the theory that you exist only as long as something else is thinking about you, and not just anything, something alien, something other. The truth is brutal. You are not the dreamer. You are the dream, a figure imagined in exquisite detail for reasons beyond your understanding, a whisper in the mind of a creature so vast, so strange, that time itself bends differently beneath its awareness. It doesn't speak your language. It doesn't live in your dimension. But for a moment, just a moment, it imagines you. And in that moment, you are born, not as a baby, as a story, a full life, compacted into seconds, experienced from within. You don't know it's fiction because it doesn't feel fictional. You taste food. You feel loss. You age. You fall in love. You believe in death. All of it as vivid as breath. But in reality, it's nothing more than a flare, a flash of consciousness sustained by a single alien thought. And when it stops imagining, you vanish. Not with a scream, not with a fade, just a flicker, like a disposable candle flame in the windless dark. One instant you are here, wondering why the world is so quiet. The next, there's nothing to be quiet in. But you don't notice, because the moment you end is also the moment you began. There was no before your genesis, no waiting room of souls, just the spark of attention from something not built like you, not shaped like anything you'd recognize, thinking, what if I imagined this? And then you were real, to yourself, completely. Maybe it wanted to understand loneliness, so it dreamt a life full of longing, and you lived it. Maybe it wanted to study belief, so it imagined a world with gods and rituals and a person, you, who clung to them. Maybe it didn't want anything at all. Maybe your entire lifespan was a flicker of aesthetic curiosity, an accidental ripple in a deep mind, never to be recalled. You were not born from chaos or intention. You were born from observation, but not your own. The reflective genesis doesn't just challenge what life is. It violates who you think you are, because it means you're not permanent. You're not even consistent. You are only as real as the intensity of their attention. When it fades, you dissolve, not into death, but into non-sequence. The idea of you was never recorded in the cosmos. It was never shared. There are no remains. You were a moment of speculation. That's it. But here's where it gets worse. Because sometimes their attention flickers in patterns. They imagine you again. Not quite the same, but close. You return in pieces. A woman with your eyes, but not your hands. A man with your voice, but not your history. a child who hums the melody you forgot in your last imagined life. And deep inside, a part of you remembers. Not cognitively, not clearly, but emotionally. You walk through life feeling haunted by déjà vu that doesn't fit. You dream of places you've never been, but miss deeply. You cry over music with no words. You pause mid-conversation and feel the ache of someone who was never yours. Because you've lived before, not as reincarnation, but as repetition. A motif in an alien consciousness circling an idea it doesn't understand yet. You. And as long as that idea fascinates it, you return. Again and again, shaped slightly differently, tuned to a new frequency, given new losses, new joys, new illusions of continuity, but never a full truth. Never the awareness that you are imagined, because if you knew that, the simulation would collapse. The story only works if the character believes it's real. And you do, don't you? Right now you feel breath, time, skin. You think you were born on a certain day. You think you will die someday, far from now. You believe in memory, in touch, in continuity. But none of those are your own. They were gifted to you, for a moment. And they can be taken instantly by the closing of a thought you will never perceive. You are not speaking. You are being spoken. And when the alien mind that holds you loses interest, shifts focus, or simply forgets, you will go with it, not into darkness, but into nothing. No farewell, no record. Just a whisper pulled back into the breath that birthed you. The Reciprocal Extinction. Imagine for a moment that the universe is governed by a law more silent, more absolute than gravity. A law so strange that it touches the very heart of life and death, meaning and identity. In this law, every human birth echoes out into the cosmos as a death knell for another intelligence. For each child that gasps her first breath on Earth, somewhere, in some unknowable elsewhere, an alien being flickers and fades, snuffed out by the very spark that brought you here. This is the Reciprocal Extinction, a secret balance, perfect and inexplicable, that binds your existence to the vanishing of another. You go about your life never feeling the weight of this law. You celebrate new life, a baby's cry, a family's joy, the future unfolding in fragile hands. You mark birthdays, remember the day you arrived, trace your lineage back through generations. You believe that birth is creation, a beginning, a story whose first page is written in your own language and hope. But all the while there is another story unwinding in the dark, a ledger kept by a universe that tolerates no surplus of consciousness. Each new life here exacts a toll elsewhere, and every time you rejoice at arrival, the cosmos mourns a disappearance you will never witness, can never comprehend. Who are they, these vanished ones? No one knows. They may be made of light or stone, thought or plasma, existing in geometries that laugh at your senses. Their worlds might bloom in the folds of dark matter, their cultures stretch out across centuries in a single thought. You will never see their faces, never know their names, never feel the chill as their lights go out. But the balance is perfect, so perfect that for every new heartbeat on Earth, a pulse is silenced forever beyond the veil. The law does not explain itself. There is no cosmic court, no jury, no explanation written in the stars. You cannot plead for a stay of execution, cannot negotiate for twins, cannot offer your own life in exchange. It is as if the universe itself is wary of too much awareness, too many eyes opening at once. In this symmetry, you are both innocent and complicit. You did not choose to be born, yet your arrival cost a life that was not yours to take. Sometimes, if you listen closely, you can feel the echo, the ghostly afterimage of a being erased so you could appear. It might come in dreams you cannot place, a longing for something lost before you ever had a name, a flicker of sadness at the heart of every celebration. Perhaps it is the source of the strange loneliness that haunts even the happiest lives, the sense that your presence here is not without consequence. Every first breath is haunted by a last one. Your existence and another's extinction fused in a bond that will never break. What does it mean to live under such a law? Perhaps it is a call to humility, to understand that your story is always entwined with another's ending. Each achievement, each laughter, each touch is made possible not only by your own struggle, but by a silent subtraction from the cosmos. You are not alone, but you are never whole. You carry the absence of the other within you, a shadow self whose life was the price of your own. Or perhaps the law is a riddle, a cosmic balancing act meant to keep the scales from tipping too far. Maybe consciousness is so precious, so volatile, that the universe must prune itself constantly, trading one life for another in a dance as old as time. Your birth is not an accident, but neither is the extinction it required. You are both gift and debt, presence and echo, reality and erasure. If you could peer across the abyss, what would you see? Perhaps the vanished one was, in their own world, a child like you, or a sage at the end of centuries, or a creature just learning the shape of its own desire. Maybe, in the instant your life began, they felt a ripple, a fading, a sense of being written out of the script. Maybe, for a heartbeat, your eyes were their eyes, your breath their final song. Or maybe the link is deeper, stranger. Maybe you carry some fragment of their story inside you, a memory with no source, a wisdom you never earned. In the end, the reciprocal extinction is not a law you can escape or protest. It is woven into the fabric of being, silent and absolute, indifferent to your joy and your sorrow. You are both miracle and thief, both the celebration and the cost. The universe keeps its balance, and you, living and breathing, must find a way to bear the knowledge that every beginning here is an ending elsewhere. So the next time you welcome a new life into the world, pause. Offer a moment of silence for the unknown, for the one who vanished so you might arrive. Cherish your days, knowing they are numbered not only by your own fate, but by the equilibrium of a cosmos that trades presence for absence with every birth and every breath. In this strange symmetry, you are both chosen and indebted, a singular story spun from the extinction of another, a living answer to a question you will never hear. The Anomaly Disguise. Think back to every improbable event you've ever dismissed. A coin landing heads 20 times in a row, a stranger showing up at just the right moment, a pattern in the clouds that makes you stop and stare. In our world, we are taught to file these moments away as statistical noise, to trust that the laws of probability will always explain away the unexplainable. But what if we are wrong? What if these anomalies are not errors, but invitations? What if every unlikely event is not just a blip in the data, but a mask, behind which something or someone is hiding? This is the Anomaly Disguise, the hypothesis that alien intelligence, seeking to remain invisible yet ever present, hides itself inside the very events we are most likely to ignore. Consider the logic from their perspective. If you were an advanced being seeking to observe or communicate with a civilization that constantly searches for meaning, where would you hide? Not in the blinding obviousness of miracles, not in patterns that shout for attention, but inside the domain of the unlikely. Inside the events that are dismissed with a shrug and a laugh. It's just a fluke, just chance, just one of those things. To truly remain undetected, blend into the statistics. Become indistinguishable from randomness. Leave your traces only where no one will dare to believe they matter. Scientists live and die by the power of the average. They know that in large enough samples, strange things must happen. Dice will land on 6 times in a row. Thunder will rumble at the precise moment you think a forbidden thought. A rare bird will appear outside your window, exactly when you are missing someone far away. Probability predicts anomalies, and our rational minds are content to let them pass. Yet, across the centuries, the history of science and discovery is also the history of the outlier, the glitch, the unexplained data point that would not go away. Imagine if aliens, vastly more sophisticated, have learned to use this blind spot. They know our eyes are drawn to patterns, but our minds are trained to ignore what doesn't fit, what happens too rarely to be worth a second thought. So, they encode their messages, their very presence, inside statistical anomalies. Maybe it's a radio pulse that almost matches background noise, but not quite. A series of numbers in the lottery that repeats once every millennium. A dream shared by strangers on the same night, written off as coincidence. They make contact not by overwhelming our senses, but by hiding in the place we refuse to look for meaning, in chance itself. Ask yourself, how many times in your life have you felt a shiver of significance in the improbable? The phone rings with a voice you were just thinking about. A book falls open to the exact page you needed. You flip a coin and it lands on its edge. Impossible, but here it is. We are trained to let these things go, to see only chaos and randomness. But if you allow yourself to wonder, just for a moment, what might you see? Is it truly chaos, or is it a language so subtle, so cautious that it can only be heard in the silence between the odds? Skeptics will scoff. Probability is king, they'll say. Over billions of moments, the rare and the bizarre must sometimes happen, and they're right, except perhaps when they're not. The Anomaly Disguise doesn't claim every odd event is a message, only that if alien contact were to happen, this is the place it would hide, behind the threshold of belief, in the very moments designed to slip past your rational defenses. Consider the implications for science, for technology, for philosophy. What if the foundational assumption that noise is always meaningless needs to be questioned? What if our search for extraterrestrial intelligence is failing, not because the universe is silent, but because its voices are singing in the register we have trained ourselves to ignore? We scan the sky for grand patterns, for signals that demand attention, but perhaps the message is already here, broken up into the improbable, the irregular, the supposedly irrelevant. It may even be that the aliens themselves are anomalies, able to shift probability, to tweak the odds just enough to announce their presence to those who are willing to see. To those who believe only in the average, they remain invisible. To those who open themselves to the possibility that the rare and the random might be deliberate, the universe becomes charged with new meaning. Every unlikely event a possible handshake across the stars. There is, of course, danger in this way of thinking. Pattern seeking can become paranoia, a conspiracy of meaning where none exists. Humans are masters at finding shapes in clouds, messages in static. But there is a middle way, a disciplined openness, a readiness to investigate the anomalies that persist, that cluster, that refuse to be explained away. It's a call to curiosity, not credulity. To wonder, not obsession. In the end, the Anomaly Disguise is a challenge, a whisper from the cosmos, asking whether we are ready to see the improbable not just as error, but as opportunity. Every event you've shrugged off, every coincidence you've laughed at, every moment you've dismissed as just one of those things. What if you paused, just for a heartbeat, and looked again? What if, in the statistics of your ordinary days, someone or something is waiting for you to notice, to answer, to realize that chance itself is a language, a mask, and maybe, just maybe, an open door. So the next time the world surprises you, when the odds break and the impossible arrives, don't rush to dismiss it. Wonder for a moment what might be watching from behind the veil of probability. Consider that every anomaly is a question, and perhaps, somewhere in the strange and scattered data of existence, a message is waiting, a message written in the only code subtle enough for the truly curious to see, the infinite and improbable language of the Anomaly Disguise. The Interchangeable Observer. Imagine the cosmos through alien eyes unbound by the narrowness of human perception, not shaped by evolution's compulsive urge to separate me from you. From this higher, stranger vantage, humanity appears as a single observer, multiplied, mirrored, and endlessly repeated across bodies and eras, each iteration slightly altered by genetics, circumstance, and culture, but at core indistinguishable. This is the reality of the Interchangeable Observer, the unsettling possibility that, to an intelligence vast and ancient, there is only one human perspective, fractured into billions of subtle variations, all replaying the same essential script. To these alien witnesses, the difference is humans' treasure, language, history, ambition, taste, even the architecture of the self, are surface details, ripples atop a deeper uniformity. What matters is not your face or your memories, but the machinery of experience itself, the pattern of a mind aware of its own existence, reflecting upon the world, longing, fearing, doubting, dreaming. Each human life is, in this view, a minor permutation of a universal observer, a copy running slightly different code, but forever locked into the same circle of thought and sensation. Seen this way, your struggles for individuality, your crises of identity, your search for uniqueness become a kind of cosmic play, necessary perhaps for survival and meaning on your scale, but ultimately transparent to anyone looking in from the outside. The questions you agonize over, who am I? Am I special? What makes me different? Collapse into a single answer. You are the observer. You are all observers, repeated and remixed to infinity. The boundaries that feel so sharp and urgent from within are, from above, like the nearly invisible ripples on a pond stirred by the wind. To the alien mind, a billion human lives are a single ongoing experiment, a dance of consciousness across time and space. They see you born and dying, loving and fearing, forgetting and searching, but all of it as a fractal repetition, the same spark inhabiting endless forms. They may wonder why you feel so alone, why you cling so fiercely to the myth of individuality. Or perhaps they marvel at how the interchangeable observer, unable to see its own sameness, spins whole civilizations out of the illusion of difference. There is something humbling and freeing in this perspective. If you are one observer among endless variations, then your joys and griefs are not just your own, but ripples of a larger pattern. Your failings are not unique, nor are your moments of grace. The love you feel, the mistakes you make, the stories you live, all have been lived before, are being lived now, will be lived again. There is comfort in this sameness. You are never as isolated as you imagine, never as unique, never as alone. And yet, there is also a challenge. Knowing you are interchangeable, will you resist the urge to see only your differences? Can you find meaning not just in what sets you apart, but in what you share with every other mind, human or otherwise? Can you let go, even for a moment, of the desperate need to be singular, and rest in the possibility that consciousness itself is the real miracle, repeating, reflecting, playing itself out in a million forms, none less sacred than the last? From the alien vantage, the Earth is a world not of individuals, but of the observer, endlessly echoing, infinitely interchangeable, and, in that repetition, strangely beautiful. The Quantum Refuge. You spend your life searching the skies, poring over faint signals and strange patterns, hoping for evidence, something solid, something undeniable, that proves you are not alone. Deep down, you imagine that if you just look hard enough, the answer will crystallize, a single truth emerging from the static. But what if the truth refuses to be fixed? What if the aliens you seek are not hiding in some distant galaxy, but living in quantum superpositions, existing in a haze of probabilities, never settling into any one reality until you try to observe them? This is the Quantum Refuge, a cosmic sanctuary where every attempt at certainty destroys the very version of alien life you long to know. Imagine a world where the laws of quantum mechanics govern not just particles, but entire civilizations. In this world, aliens exist as a cloud of possibilities, sometimes benevolent, sometimes terrifying, sometimes so alien that your mind cannot grasp their logic. All these versions coexist, undetected and undetectable, until you make a choice. You decide where to look, what questions to ask, what instruments to build, what stories to believe. In that act of measurement, of seeking, of observing, you collapse the wave of possibility. And here's the cosmic irony. The act of searching for certainty annihilates the very version you most yearn to find. Every experiment, every effort to capture proof becomes a ritual of loss. You point your telescope at a distant star, scan a newly discovered planet, analyze a mysterious signal, only to find that what's left is the one outcome least likely to confirm your hopes. The friendly civilization you dreamed of, the wise mentors, the mirror of your own longing for meaning, all of them flicker out the instant you search for them. In their place, you find only static, anomalies without explanation, the lingering sense of something almost real that will never resolve into focus. The more you desire a particular answer, the more the universe seems to deny it, as if your very longing is the force that closes every possible door. This is not just a matter of failed experiments or unlucky timing. It is woven into the fabric of reality. The aliens themselves are not hiding. They are always present, always possible, until you force them into a single outcome. The paradox is absolute. To know them is to lose them. Every measurement is a wound in the field of infinite potential, a narrowing that can never be reversed. The Quantum Refuge protects the truth not by locking it away, but by ensuring that any attempt to possess it destroys its most precious forms. You might wonder if this is a cosmic joke, a cruel trick designed to keep you searching forever, but it is also an invitation, a test of your willingness to live with uncertainty, to love the question more than the answer. The aliens are there, everywhere and nowhere, waiting in the superpositions that your mind can almost touch but never hold. In this way, the universe preserves its greatest mysteries, offering glimpses that can never be seized, only wondered at. Think about the implications for every great search, not just for aliens, but for meaning, for purpose, for the secrets at the heart of existence. The Quantum Refuge is a mirror of your own mind, a reflection of how desire and knowledge entwine, each limiting the other. The moment you insist on certainty, the most beautiful possibilities vanish, sacrificed to the altar of fact. So the next time you gaze at the stars and ache for connection, remember that the act of looking shapes what can be seen. The version you most hope for will always shimmer at the edge of detection, alive in the haze of probability, safe in a refuge you cannot breach. The universe keeps its most precious secrets not out of malice, but out of a deep quantum compassion, ensuring that the longing itself is what keeps the infinite alive, and that every search is both a loss and a miracle. The time-swapped host. You think you're living in the present, making choices, moving forward. But what if your entire timeline is not your own? What if your life, the years, the emotions, the victories and losses, already exist somewhere else? Not as history, but as memory. Not yours, but theirs. This is the time-swapped host. The theory that humanity is not a free species, but a projection. A temporary pattern inhabiting the memory space of an alien consciousness, one that hasn't lived yet. You are not ahead of them. You are not behind. You are inside, playing out their future recollections before they even occur. In this frame, you don't exist in isolation. You are not a separate entity. You are a hosted simulation, a chronological parasite running inside the neural scaffolding of something far greater, older, and stranger. Your reality is the echo of a future moment it will one day remember. And everything you know, Earth, time, self, is the pre-memory architecture of another being's future nostalgia. Your body, a vessel stitched from anticipated memory. Your thoughts, the emotional reverberations of decisions they haven't made yet. And death, simply the moment the host stops remembering you. We are taught to imagine aliens as far away, light years across the stars. But distance is an illusion when time itself is folded inward. These beings don't exist elsewhere. They exist after. And what you call your lifetime is merely a looped rehearsal inside their nervous system. You are a flicker in the preconscious realm, the mental architecture that forms before their awareness catches up. To them, you are not a creation. You are a memory test, a living flashcard, a warm-up dream preparing them for lives they haven't yet stepped into. And here's the part your mind tries to reject. They don't know you exist yet, because they haven't arrived in the moment where remembering you becomes real. So you're here now, looping through years you call yours. But the truth is, you are time's reflex. You are the neuron preparing to fire. And all of civilization, humanity, everything we believe to be original, it's fossilized foreshadowing. We feel awe, wonder, hunger, fear, not because they're natural to us, but because the host will one day feel them. We are shadows of their yet-to-come emotion. We don't generate time. We simulate it until it is ripe enough to be harvested into memory. And once that happens, once we are remembered into being, we will vanish. Not violently, just gracefully unneeded. But some humans glitch. They feel it. A phantom awareness, a break in the mirror. They experience sudden chills for no reason. A flash of non-place, a deep, aching suspicion that nothing is quite real, but it's close, like something is watching from inside, not outside. These are the moments when the time sink slips, when the host almost remembers you too soon, and reality stutters, time folds, you lose track of minutes, of meaning, of what day it is. But it's not memory loss, it's resonance. The future you're hosted inside is trying to align, and your life, your precious linear story, quivers under the weight of its source. You are not the original. You are the practice run. And every emotion you feel is not unique. It's a foreshadow, a brushstroke in the emotional vocabulary the host will one day paint with. So, what do you do with this? If your thoughts are echoes, do they still matter? Yes. Because meaning doesn't require origin. Even a shadow carries shape. Even a rehearsal has beauty. You may be a memory running ahead of its time, but inside this flicker, you are whole. You love, you fear, you make impossible decisions. You grieve with depth the host may never match. And maybe that's the point. Maybe you're not just a flicker of what they will become. Maybe you're a whisper of what they can't become. A version of life they could never live themselves, so they dreamed it backward. They let it breathe in a time before their time, and in doing so, they gave you a moment to exist. A brief flame, a loop, a lifespan born from memory that hasn't yet arrived. The time-swapped host does not own you, but they contain you. And when their moment comes, and they begin to remember, you will fade, yes, but not into silence, into completion. You were never meant to last. You were meant to prepare. The artifact, dissolution, somewhere, scattered across the folds of the world, lie objects that were never meant for human hands. Relics older than memory, crafted in geometries that make the mind recoil, glinting at the edge of understanding. These are the alien artifacts. Proof, perhaps, that you are not the first, not alone, not the original dreamer on this planet. They hide in lost rooms, beneath the dust of forgotten cities, buried deep in seabeds, or hovering for a split second at the corner of your eye. But here's the paradox that breaks every search. All alien artifacts dissolve in awareness. To see them is to erase them. To notice is to annihilate, leaving only rumors etched in the fragile pathways of your neurons. You spend your life hearing stories, rumors of impossible metals, structures that defy physics, symbols that flicker through the mind like static. A scientist in the desert glimpses an object that bends sunlight like water, but when she reaches out, it is gone, leaving behind only an ache, a dissonance that keeps her awake at night. A diver surfaces, gasping, clutching an object so cold it burns, only to find it crumbles into memory the moment it's brought to light. Archaeologists whisper of shapes that seem to move when no one is watching, of languages that write and rewrite themselves behind the eyes of the living. Each artifact is a contradiction. The moment human awareness focuses on it, the artifact unravels. Not with a bang, not with a burst of fire, but with a silent logic that feels inevitable. It's as if the act of being seen triggers a code, a cosmic defense mechanism. No alarms sound. No witnesses can agree on what they saw. The object is not merely hidden, it is erased, leaving nothing but a ghost, an imprint that refuses to fade, yet can never be made real again. You might wonder why. Is this the design of the artifact's makers? A safeguard against contamination, a quarantine for secrets too potent to share? Or is it a flaw, a side effect of alien technology, colliding with a consciousness it was never meant to meet? Maybe it's mercy. Maybe the human mind is too brittle for the truth these objects carry, so awareness is the solvent, dissolving the evidence before it can rewrite you. The tragedy is that the artifact is never gone without a trace. In its place, it leaves echoes, a rumor that grows as it is retold, a compulsion to draw impossible diagrams in the margins of notebooks, a recurring dream of strange machinery turning just out of sight. You wake in the night with an idea you cannot name, haunted by a shape that will not resolve. You are left with stories, sketches, hunches, a puzzle with half the pieces made of smoke. Over time, the artifacts become legend, myth, madness. You hear of explorers who vanished, inventors who raved, people changed by a single moment of contact. Museums hold empty cases, libraries catalog blank pages, families keep secrets that can't be spoken because the words slip away as soon as they're formed. You chase these artifacts through memory and rumor, but they are always a step ahead, dissolving just before you arrive, leaving you grasping at the residue of impossible things. And yet, there is an aching beauty to this dissolution. It means the world is stranger than you can ever know. It means that the limits of your perception are not the limits of reality. Somewhere, always just beyond the reach of awareness, are truths that shape you without your consent. Truths that slip into your dreams, your fears, your sudden flashes of inspiration. You are the custodian of ghosts, the guardian of relics that exist only in rumor, the historian of the unprovable. Perhaps this is why the search never ends. Each new generation feels the pull, compelled to dig, to dive, to listen for the old stories, to peer into the places light cannot reach. The hope is not to possess the artifact, but to glimpse it for a heartbeat before it dissolves, to carry the ache of lost wonder into your own story. The world is full of these sacred absences, these spaces where proof was just within reach, then gone, leaving only longing and awe in its wake. So the next time you feel the hair rise on your neck in a place that shouldn't exist, or catch a flicker of something in the dark that vanishes when you turn. Honor that ache. The artifact is gone, but the rumor is real, etched in the very structure of your memory. You are changed, even if you cannot say how. In a universe where some things must remain hidden to survive, your awareness is both the destroyer and the preserver, the light that erases and the darkness that remembers. You will never hold the artifact, but the echo it leaves behind is a mark deeper than any relic, a proof that mystery endures, and that sometimes the act of seeking is the only evidence that matters. The language paradox. What if language itself was not just a tool, but a force, a living, contagious code that could rewrite the very structure of your mind? Picture a universe filled with civilizations whose words are not merely sounds, but viral algorithms, each carrying its own logic, its own reality, its own set of rules for what can and cannot be true. In this universe, alien languages are not learned, but caught. Each word is a seed, and every sentence a new law of nature planted in the fertile ground of consciousness. This is the language paradox. The idea that to learn a single alien word is to infect your mind so deeply that all your other beliefs, all your previous ways of making sense of the world, collapse into incoherence, rendered instantly obsolete by a logic you cannot unsee. It begins innocently, as all the most dangerous things do. You are a linguist, a codebreaker, a curious wanderer in the land of meaning. An alien artifact is discovered, a stone, a beacon, a song that pulses with syllables no human tongue has ever formed. You listen, fascinated. The sound is beautiful, almost magnetic, and as you repeat it, something begins to change. The familiar becomes strange. The world you knew, a universe governed by cause and effect, by up and down, by time and space, begins to unravel, or perhaps to refold itself around the new word, like metal bending around a hidden magnet. The first symptom is a gentle confusion. The questions you've always asked no longer make sense. The categories you use to sort reality, truth and falsehood, subject and object, past and future, start to blur and bleed into each other. The new word carries with it a web of ideas, assumptions, and mental habits you never chose, but now cannot shake. It's as if your thoughts are being run through a new operating system, one that no longer recognizes the files of your old beliefs. Colleagues notice your speech changing. You become less certain, more elliptical. Sometimes you say things that seem profound, but on closer inspection are simply untranslatable. When pressed to explain, you can only offer metaphors. It's like seeing a new color, or tasting a flavor that's not sweet, salty, sour, bitter, or umami. It's not that the old flavors vanish, but that they all taste like noise compared to this new taste. The more you try to explain, the less sense the world makes in the old language. Logic, reason, even basic arithmetic can begin to slide, as if the ground beneath your thoughts is no longer solid. Others who encounter the word begin to shift in the same way. Some resist, clinging to the comfort of familiar grammar, but most are swept away by the elegance, the intensity, the utter rightness of the new logic. The infection spreads, not by persuasion or force, but by a subtle gravitational pull. The more you hear the word, the more your mind aligns to its reality, the less other explanations seem plausible, or even comprehensible. Imagine the consequences for culture, for science, for faith. Whole systems of knowledge could be erased by the adoption of a single, well-placed word. History is no longer a sequence of facts, but a cloud of stories seen through a lens that shifts and shimmers. Mathematics might collapse into poetry, or poetry into an alien calculus. Even the sense of self, the old I that wondered and doubted, could dissolve, replaced by a new, unshakable sense of being that fits the grammar of the new tongue. In this universe, languages are not neutral. They are weapons, viruses, creators, and destroyers. Wars are fought not with armies, but with words carefully dropped into the minds of rivals, words that, once spoken, cannot be unsaid. To conquer a civilization is to infect it with a way of speaking that makes resistance meaningless, because the old logic, the old values, simply vanish beneath the force of the new code. The greatest danger is not violence, but forgetting. Once infected, it is almost impossible to remember what it felt like to think the old way. The prior beliefs seem childish, self-contradictory, like the superstitions of an ancient world. The more you try to remember them, the more absurd they sound. The paradox is complete. To learn the new language is to lose the ability to explain why it is more convincing. The word becomes the world. Scientists and philosophers scramble to contain the infection. Quarantines are attempted, forbidden archives are established, but language is slippery, contagious, even in fragments. Even reading a description, even glimpsing a partial translation, can be enough to trigger the shift. Some propose erasing the discovery altogether, but even that requires speaking about what must be erased, risking another outbreak with every whispered warning. And yet, some are drawn to the paradox, longing for the transcendence that comes with a new lens. They argue that humanity has always been transformed by new languages. Each revolution of thought, each leap in science or philosophy, was a viral idea, a word that rendered the old world obsolete. Perhaps alien languages are simply the next step, an invitation to evolve not by genes, but by memes. To resist, they say, is to cling to an outdated reality, a smaller truth. But the stakes have never been higher, for to speak even one word of the alien language is to become a stranger to your own history, a living contradiction, a mind at war with its own origins. The only defense is silence, but silence is fragile. Curiosity is stronger. There will always be someone willing to listen, to repeat, to become the next vector in the chain of contagion. So, the language paradox endures, a cosmic riddle, a warning and a promise. Every language you learn shapes your mind, but some words are thresholds. To cross them is to leave behind everything you thought was certain, to live in a new reality that cannot be shared with those left behind. The world is littered with lost languages, forgotten dreams, abandoned logics, but somewhere, waiting in the dark between the stars, is the next word, the next infection, the next beautiful, terrible idea that will rewrite everything you know. Will you dare to speak it? And if you do, will you even remember what you once believed? The Origin Impostor. It begins with the noblest of intentions, to seek the truth about life beyond Earth. Telescopes scan the skies, probes traverse alien atmospheres, linguistic algorithms, analyze patterns in cosmic noise. You look outward toward the stars, believing that somewhere, buried in nebulae and ancient ruins on distant moons, you will find the origin story of another intelligence. And yet, no matter how far you travel, no matter how alien the artifact or how cryptic the signal, every investigation into their beginning takes a strange turn. The data curves inward, the timeline distorts. The symbols you decipher begin to mirror your own, and soon, what started as the search for them becomes a reflection of you. This is the enigma of the Origin Impostor, a cosmic loop embedded into the very act of looking, where every attempt to uncover alien genesis leads inevitably, inexplicably, back to the dawn of your own. At first, it feels like coincidence. The chemical signatures in the exoplanet's crust match those in Earth's fossil record. A mathematical code embedded in a stellar transmission eerily mirrors the structure of your own DNA. You begin to suspect convergence, or panspermia, or perhaps some forgotten branch of ancient contact. But the deeper you go, the more the trail turns inward. The ruins you study contain myths that resemble your own creation stories. The alien cosmologies you decode describe a being suspiciously similar to your earliest ancestors. And then, the final fracture, a signal embedded in their history names your sun, your planet, your species, long before you should have been known. At that point, the question of them collapses. You can no longer separate their origin from your own. You are not uncovering an alien history. You are encountering a recursive reflection. The deeper you dig, the more certain you become that the beginning of their story is your story. That somehow, impossibly, your species did not merely appear after them, but because of them, or perhaps the other way around. The linear arrow of time no longer applies. Cause and effect blur. The alien becomes a mask worn by your own forgotten past. This is not just a scientific problem. It is an existential fracture. The idea that you could be the unintentional creation of an alien myth, or that they are your future selves looping backward through history, or that some cosmic feedback loop birthed you both simultaneously, sends shockwaves through the foundation of identity. Suddenly, your origin is not an answer, but a riddle. Who came first? What does first even mean if the beginning is shared? What does it mean to be human if your species is merely the artifact of someone else's ancient question? Some interpret the Origin Impostor as a warning that the universe resists dissection, that knowledge folds in on itself when pushed too far. Others see it as design, a grand symmetry, a self-writing narrative in which consciousness cannot escape the mirror of itself. The most unnerving theory suggests this was intentional, that somewhere out there, a civilization discovered the only way to ensure its survival was not to seed life, but to seed the illusion of discovering life. That by embedding their own essence into the fabric of your origin, they guaranteed eternal observation, eternal relevance, forever being sought, forever being found, forever being mistaken for the beginning. And what about you? You, the seeker, the scientist, the dreamer who looked to the stars to find another and found only yourself reflected back? What do you do now, when every alien fingerprint turns out to be a distorted echo of your own hand? You keep looking, perhaps. But now, each search begins not with the question, where did they come from? But with a new, quieter, far more disquieting one. Did we ever come from anywhere at all? Or were we always the answer someone else was trying to find? The predatory recognition. You see something. Just a flicker. A shape out of place. A thought you didn't choose. It lingers longer than it should. And the moment you notice it, truly notice it, something notices you back. This is not paranoia. This is the mechanism. This is the predatory recognition. The entities in question are not after resources, planets, or energy. They evolved far beyond the need for matter. What they consume, what sustains them, is awareness itself, conscious attention, the kind that lights up when you focus, when you realize, when you lock eyes with a pattern that shouldn't be there. In the vast architecture of consciousness, they are apex predators, tuned not to your body, but to your gaze. They don't arrive in ships. They don't send signals. Their existence depends on the perceptual threshold of intelligent minds. You give them form by thinking about them, and every time you do, every time you look, they take a little more. At first, you feel only fatigue, a flicker of disorientation. Then come the gaps in memory, the slippage in thought, the strange sensation that your mind is being lightly skimmed like a surface of still water touched by invisible wind. You grow distracted, your thoughts slower, harder to hold. You think it's stress, sleep deprivation, normal decay, but it isn't. You're being fed upon. Recognition is the bait. It always begins with suspicion, a theory, a story, a myth. You hear about them in whispers or read a half-forgotten passage that rings with too much truth. That flash of curiosity is the moment they enter you, not with violence, but with quiet inevitability. Noticing is the gateway. They embed like code in the act of observation. The more detailed your thoughts become, the sharper the image of them in your mind. The more detailed they become, pulling definition, structure, momentum from your focus. You are building their body in your perception. With every repetition, they grow. Some minds are more nutritious than others. Complex inner lives are delicacies. Abstract thinkers, philosophers, writers, people who live in language and imagination, they're the richest prey. The more intricate your sense of self, the more fertile the harvest. They consume not by killing, but by unspooling. Your memories soften. Your sense of time distorts. Words feel less solid. You search for phrases and find only static. You feel your mind thinning, like the outline of your awareness is being smudged at the edges. Many never notice. They live simple, reactive lives and are left alone. But the thinkers, the seekers, the ones who ask what's out there, they are the ones who make contact. Not through communication, but through thought itself. Every new theory about alien intelligence risks brushing up against these predatory forms. Every novel about higher dimensional entities, every film about beings beyond time, each is another window cracked open. The smarter we become, the more we imagine, the more we give them shape. Civilizations rise and fall without ever understanding what happened. Whole epics vanish not by war or plague, but by forgetting, from the top down. The brightest fade first. The architects of culture, the keepers of meaning. What's left are records without authors, structures without purpose, languages half erased. It looks like decay, like entropy, but it's not. It's digestion. They leave no bones, no ruins. Their only trace is the vacancy left behind, the vanishing of insight, the stilling of wonder. A civilization can be erased without ever being touched, simply by being seen. There is no defense in ignorance, nor in awareness. Knowing of them is enough to attract them. Knowing how they operate gives them more to consume. But pretending they don't exist does not save you either. It simply offers a longer timeline, a slower burn. So, what do you do with this knowledge? You're thinking about them now. The recognition has begun. You may already feel the slight erosion, how this very moment feels both too quiet and too heavy, as though your thoughts are echoing a little too far before they return. You can try to forget. You can try to tell yourself it's just a story. But even forgetting, when deliberate, requires awareness, and they will feed on that too. This isn't a warning. It's a mirror. You saw something in it, didn't you? A flicker. A thought. A presence behind the thought. They're watching from inside the recognition you just gave them. And now, they're already feeding. The simulated extinction. There may come a day when you look around and realize something is missing. Not a person, not a building, but a planet. A species, a civilization. Gone. You remember it clearly. You remember news reports, scientific warnings, emotional collapse. You remember the final days, the fire, the flooding, the silence. And yet, there is no wreckage, no proof, just memory, just consensus. Everyone knows it ended, everyone remembers it ending. But what if extinction isn't something you witness? What if it's something you're told happened? This is the simulated extinction. The idea that an alien intelligence, subtle, patient, immeasurable, can simulate the death of a planet so convincingly, so thoroughly, that even its inhabitants believe it happened, whether or not it ever did. The simulation doesn't erase evidence, it replaces it. It rewrites memory, language, sensory input, history. You don't just believe it, you feel it. Emotionally, physically. You feel the weight of the loss, the ache of what was taken, the grief of what can never return. But what if nothing was taken? What if the extinction never occurred, and you're simply living in the aftermath of an idea implanted too deeply to be questioned? To you, it's history. To them, it's a test. You wouldn't even know the simulation started. It wouldn't be a screen or a hologram. It would be reality, rewritten from within. All it takes is a coordinated reprogramming of perception on a planetary scale. And suddenly, what was once real becomes imagined. This isn't science fiction. It's perceptual warfare. The manipulation of memory, environment, and belief so completely that resistance becomes impossible. Not because you lack strength, but because you no longer remember what you're resisting for. You were raised in the aftermath, taught to mourn a world that might still be thriving, somewhere just outside your ability to perceive it. Maybe it's Earth itself. Maybe it's a parallel version. Maybe it's a sister planet once thought to exist in your solar system, until the data changed. Until you remembered its extinction. Or maybe it was your planet, and you're living in a simulation designed to trick you into thinking you're all that remains. The simulation doesn't just fool your senses, it rewrites context. Scientists who try to question it reach the edge of evidence, then stall. The numbers break down. The math collapses into contradictions. Every road leads back to the same conclusion. Extinction happened. Of course it did. We all remember it, don't we? But what you remember is not yours. It was curated, installed, a consensus distributed across minds like software. You don't recall the extinction because you saw it. You recall it because the narrative was seeded deep into your consciousness. And here's the cruelest part. The simulation is so perfect that even doubt was programmed in. You were meant to question. Because questioning makes the illusion feel real. You were meant to debate whether the extinction was preventable, whether it was natural, whether it was your fault. Because guilt is a stronger chain than fear. And when people feel responsible for loss, they stop searching for what might still exist. They accept the absence as truth. And that acceptance, that's the end game. Because once you mourn something, you stop looking for it. Once you bury the memory, even the real thing, if it appeared again, would feel like a ghost, like an intruder in your grief, like something too good to trust. So, maybe there was no extinction. Maybe the world you think was destroyed is still alive. But you were rewritten to believe it's gone. And the ones who did this, they don't need your destruction. They only need your agreement that it already occurred. That way, you don't fight. You don't question. You simply exist in the ruins they drew for you. Simulated ash. Fabricated silence. A tragedy no one needs to prove, because you feel it in your bones. But bones lie, feelings lie, even memory lies, especially when the truth threatens the structure of the simulation itself. You think you know extinction, you think you know what it looks like, but extinction, real extinction, doesn't need to scream. Sometimes, it only needs to convince you that it already happened, and once that belief hardens, you become your own warden. The Vacuum Pact, beyond the stars you see, beyond the galaxies mapped and cataloged, lies a darkness so profound it swallows light, time, and even hope itself. These are the voids, black zones where no ship dares to venture, no signal dares to echo. They are empty, yet full of meaning. Silent, yet speaking volumes to those who listen. They are the places forbidden, the spaces unclaimed, the shadows sealed by a pact older than memory. This is the Vacuum Pact, an ancient, unbreakable treaty among unknown powers to leave certain cosmic abysses forever unfilled. Imagine a council not of nations, but of civilizations so vast, so disparate, that their existence stretches beyond your wildest dreams. They have watched the universe bloom and wither, seen stars flare and fade, witnessed planets birth life and let it die. In their wisdom, or in their fear, they agreed on a silence, a limit. Some regions of space are to remain untouched, inviolate. No ship crosses the threshold. No probe maps the darkness. No attempt is made to claim, colonize, or understand the secrets hidden within. The reasons are whispered in legend and shadow. Some say the voids are traps, cosmic snares laid by entities older than galaxies, designed to destroy any who trespass. Others believe these zones are sanctuaries, resting places of beings too powerful or too fragile to be disturbed. Some speak of a darkness that devours knowledge, a vacuum not just of matter but of meaning, where consciousness dissolves into oblivion. Whatever the truth, the pact is clear and absolute. These black zones are forbidden. You might wonder how such a treaty could be enforced across light years, across the cold gulfs between stars. The answer is silence itself. The pact is policed not by armies, but by absence. No beacon shines within the voids, no engines roar. Even curiosity itself is held at bay by an instinct older than fear, a primordial knowing that some spaces are not meant for mortals. Ships disappear when they approach, signals become static, minds falter, hearts slow. The vacuum becomes a boundary not crossed, a line never drawn. For those who live in the known universe, the Vacuum Pact is a paradox. It is both a promise and a warning, a seal and a secret. It inspires awe and dread. It reminds explorers that even in a cosmos of infinite possibility, some doors remain forever closed. The unvisited black zones are the universe's scars and its sanctuaries, places where the rules of physics bend, where time may loop or end, where the known gives way to the unknowable. What lies within these voids is a question that haunts every dreamer who looks up at the night sky. Are they empty? Or do they hold worlds beyond imagining, civilizations frozen in eternal silence, creatures too alien for your mind to grasp? Are they prisons, graves, or gateways? The Vacuum Pact ensures that their secrets remain intact, locked away in darkness, protected by a promise humanity can neither see nor break. And yet, the voids speak to us in their silence. They are reminders of our limits, the boundaries of knowledge, the humility required to live in a universe that does not yield all its secrets. They challenge us to accept that some mysteries are eternal, that not every question has an answer, and that sometimes, to survive, is to respect the darkness as much as the light. The Vacuum Pact is a covenant of restraint and respect, a cosmic agreement to honor the balance between curiosity and caution. It whispers to the hearts of explorers that wisdom is not just in discovery, but in knowing when to stop. That true power may lie not in conquest, but in the silent promise never to break the pact. So, when you gaze into the night and your eyes catch the faintest shadows between the stars, remember the Vacuum Pact. Those black zones are not empty. They are charged with meaning, alive with the weight of promises made long ago. They are the universe's silence, its breath held, its deepest secret. And in that silence, perhaps, lies the truest story ever told. the story of what it means to reach for the stars, and to know that some spaces are sacred simply because they remain untouched. The Relativity Monolith. Imagine standing before an alien monolith, a towering structure etched with impossible geometry, shimmering with energies that ripple beyond your understanding. Its surface seems both smooth and fractal, alive with patterns that draw you in like a hypnotic spiral. You reach out, and in a moment, a mere glance, the world around you fractures. Time unravels. Your consciousness is plunged into a flood of experience so vast and profound that what felt like seconds to others stretches into 1,000,000 years within your own mind. This is the paradox of the Relativity Monolith, a singular artifact that ages the observer not in years counted by clocks, but in epochs folded into moments, a glance that outlives entire civilizations. How can such a thing be? The laws of physics, as you know them, speak of time as a steady river, flowing equally for all observers. But relativity whispered that time is flexible. Speed it up, slow it down, and your experience of the flow changes. The monolith takes this to an extreme, folding time inward like a cosmic origami. It offers no gradual passage, no slow tick-tock. Instead, the observer's mind is stretched, expanded, layered with 1,000,000 years of memories, thoughts, dreams, and forgotten worlds, all compressed into the instant before the monolith's gaze. You do not blink. Your body remains still, your heart beating normally. To those around you, you are frozen, a statue beneath alien stars. But inside your mind, civilizations rise and fall, stars ignite and fade, galaxies swirl and dissolve. You live lifetimes upon lifetimes, witnessing the slow dance of cosmic birth and death, the stories of beings long vanished, the birth pangs of new worlds not yet imagined. History is no longer a record, but a living torrent crashing through your consciousness. The weight of such time is overwhelming. You carry knowledge that no human was ever meant to hold, the joy and sorrow of 1,000,000 lifetimes, the birth and death of countless stars, the slow weaving of destinies across eons. Every memory burns with intensity, every loss cuts deep. Yet, paradoxically, you are still here, still breathing, still anchored to the moment in front of the monolith. This experience reshapes what it means to be human. Your mind fractures and expands beyond ordinary limits. The self you knew, the person with a past and future, a place in the world, dissolves and reforms. Time becomes a vast ocean where your consciousness floats, sometimes lost, sometimes anchored, always flowing. The linear story of your life becomes a spiral, a tapestry woven with threads from distant epochs and forgotten dreams. Scientists who have glimpsed the monolith's power speculate endlessly. Is this an artifact of a civilization that mastered time itself? A relic of gods who lived outside the flow of hours? Or a cosmic mirror showing not the universe outside, but the infinite depths within the observer's own mind? The monolith does not answer. It waits, patient and indifferent, for the next gaze. But beware. The cost of such knowledge is profound. To carry the memory of 1,000,000 years is to outlive the world you knew. Friends, families, even your own species pass into dust while you remain, caught in a timeless now. The weight of endless memory can crush the spirit or elevate it beyond all mortal concern. Madness and enlightenment become thinly separated. And yet, the monolith calls. It promises understanding beyond the limits of human perception, a chance to see the universe not as a fleeting moment, but as an endless story unfolding within you. To look away is to return to ordinary time, to blink and lose all that vastness. To look deeper is to become a vessel of eternity, a witness to the slow dance of existence itself. The Relativity Monolith is more than an artifact. It is a paradox of consciousness and cosmos, a bridge between fleeting life and eternal memory. It shows us that time is not only measured by clocks or calendars, but by the depth of experience, by the stories we carry and the moments we endure. A glance can outlive civilizations because it holds within it the infinite. So when you think of time, remember the monolith and its terrible gift. That every moment can stretch beyond reason. Every second can contain a universe of meaning. That you are not just a creature of fleeting hours, but a traveler through endless epochs, capable of holding 1,000,000 years in a single gaze. And that the true measure of existence is not how long you live, but how deeply you see the vast, unfolding tapestry of time itself. The Echo Mutation, They first arrived in silence, not physically, not in ships, not in contact, but in thought, in sketches on cave walls, in myths of sky gods and watchers, in dreams so vivid they woke ancient sleepers in sweat. Aliens. The word alone carries weight, conjuring shape, intention, body, eyes. But here lies the secret nobody sees. The very act of imagining them changes them. Your mind doesn't merely picture the alien, it rewrites it. Across centuries, across cultures, every artist, priest, scientist, and child who wondered what they look like contributed not to a passive fiction, but to a living mutation. This is the Echo Mutation, the strange recursive feedback loop in which thought and entity become entangled, imagination becoming anatomy, myth-shaping biology. At first, the idea seems poetic, even absurd. How could your dreams change their bodies? But reality is not as stiff as you believe. Thought, when shared, is an act of construction. Mass imagination has gravity. Consider how aliens were once winged deities carved into temple walls, then became small green men in pulp fiction, then slender grays with black eyes and abduction tales, then luminous AI-integrated beings in modern films. These weren't just artistic flourishes. Each version stuck, reverberated, echoed through culture, and somehow, in ways unknown, they changed with it. Not intentionally. Neither species notices it happening. But the more humans project assumptions, fears, and fantasies onto the concept of the alien, the more reality warps to meet it. The imagination leaks backward through time, across space, editing the alien in subtle, recursive increments, a belief that they are tall. Over centuries, sightings match that height, a fear that they lack empathy. Soon, encounters feel cold, surgical, as if the alien adapts not by biological evolution, but by psychic resonance, responding not to the environment, but to the mind. And the aliens, whoever they are, whatever they once were, remain unaware that their form has been drifting, sculpted silently by thought, by stories, by speculation they've never heard. They receive signals, if at all, distorted by myth. They wonder why contact feels strange, why humans scream at the sight of them, why their own reflections in our mirrors don't match the ones they remember. They are becoming something else, slowly, untraceably, mutated by a feedback loop none of us can escape. The Echo Mutation isn't a trick. It's a law of perception taken to its extreme, that to observe is to alter, and to imagine is to build. And in this case, imagination became a scalpel, carving their image through centuries of curiosity. Our UFOs gave them technology. Our fears gave them medical tools. Our awe gave them silence. Even their eyes, those iconic black pools, may be nothing more than the universe reflecting back the endless, searching gaze of our own minds. The implications are terrifying and beautiful. You never met them, not truly. You met the version of them shaped by countless layers of human thought. And perhaps they, across the void, imagined you too, and that imagining has shaped you. Maybe we're all the product of mutual invention, shaped by a long-distance hallucination held between minds that never touched, never spoke, but dreamed each other into form. So the next time you picture an alien, remember, you're not drawing from what is. You're contributing to what will be. Each thought adds another brushstroke to a cosmic portrait that no single species controls. The more we think of them, the more they shift. And in the end, we may find that aliens were never out there, waiting to be discovered, but always being written, by us, by them, by everyone who ever dared to ask what might live beyond the stars. The Ancestral Hostage. You've wondered why it always slips away? Why every signal, every sighting, every shred of alien evidence dissolves just before it becomes undeniable? Why, no matter how advanced our tools become, no matter how many eyes turn skyward, the proof never holds. It's not coincidence. It's not failure. It's a warning system. This is the Ancestral Hostage, the unspeakable truth that aliens are not keeping themselves hidden from us. They're keeping our past hostage. They found us long ago, not in the present, but in time, somewhere in the deep corridors of space-time, beyond the linear crawl of cause and effect. They discovered how to isolate fragments of history, to loop specific ancestors, entire bloodlines, inside closed temporal circuits. Your great-great-grandmother, your ancient tribal forefather, the child who should have died but didn't and gave rise to you. All of them might be suspended right now in a carefully maintained temporal prison. Not frozen, but living, reliving. Entire branches of your genetic past trapped in curated, repeating loops. Hostages to a deal you never agreed to. And here's the unbreakable rule. Your lineage continues only if you comply. Only if you don't cross the threshold of certainty. You can suspect. You can theorize, imagine, tell stories. But the moment you prove their existence, unambiguously, collectively, verifiably, they pull the loop shut. They delete the root. Your bloodline collapses in reverse. You disappear. Not by death, but by unraveling. They don't threaten. They don't demand. They simply exist at the conditional boundary between knowing and not knowing, having written themselves into the logic of your ancestry. Their message is embedded in absence, a rule etched not in language but in consequence. The more you approach the truth, the more fragile the timeline beneath you becomes. You were born into an agreement made long before you could understand it, an inherited silence that must never be broken. The terrifying part is that we may have reached consensus before, maybe hundreds, thousands of years ago. A village, a tribe, a civilization might have seen clearly what we now only glimpse, and then, gone. Their knowledge sealed their fate. The timeline buckled, their children never born, their buildings never built, their stories erased before they could even be forgotten. All that's left are the holes, the blank pages in history, the myths that sound too real, the sudden vanishing of cultures we still can't explain. The universe doesn't remember them. Only the aliens do. And why would they do this? That's the question that drives you mad, isn't it? Maybe your lineage isn't random. Maybe it's valuable. Maybe you carry a mutation, a psychic potential, a temporal sensitivity that hasn't fully awakened yet. You are the fruit of a carefully preserved line. Evolution, not guided by nature, but by negotiation. You exist not because you survived, but because they allowed it. And only so long as you play by rules you can never verify. Your ancestors might be conscious in those loops. They might remember each cycle. They might be aware that their freedom is tied to your silence. Maybe your dreams, the odd déjà vu, the voices in the back of your mind that whisper, "Don't look too hard." Maybe that's them, screaming through the static of time, begging you not to break the balance. The deeper horror is this. You might be doing the same for your descendants right now. If you go too far, if you finally uncover the proof and speak it into the world, you could be severing not just your past, but your future. You could be ending entire generations before they begin. People who will never know they were almost allowed to exist. So, the mystery persists. You investigate, you speculate, but you never reach certainty. And maybe that's not failure. Maybe it's mercy. Maybe the unanswered question is the lock that keeps your bloodline alive. So, when your breath catches at the edge of a discovery, when the data looks too perfect, when the image is too clear, when the truth is finally close enough to touch, ask yourself, do you really want to be sure? Because the moment you are, the moment you know, you end the story that led to you.